One cool forest wind sweeps through the open window, brushing against the sleeping youth. Tiny chimes on the windowsill clink together, singing a quiet song in the early morning air. Gauss sits up on his rough wooden crate bed, pressing his palm against the coarse linen sheet. He feels the dry straw shift beneath the fabric and tries to remember who he really is. Two distinct lives, they are currently battling for control inside his aching head. One belongs to a poor village hunter, the other to a freshly graduated college student. That modern life was filled with busy streets, traffic lights, and cheap instant noodles. A total mind melt. Who is he really, and is any of this actually real? Gauss stands up to test his reality, stepping toward the window to look down at the street. This place is completely foreign. A thick morning mist hangs low over the quiet cobblestone road. Merchant carriages roll past, while women place clay pots outside their shops. Nearby, a young blacksmith apprentice throws open the heavy wooden doors of his workshop. He hangs up the morning welcome sign. The entire view confirms one impossible truth. He has been dropped right into a completely different fantasy world. It seems this is his new life now. Fortunately, the deceased hunter's memories still remain. If those leftover thoughts are actually true, this strange new world operates on magic. Hostile goblins, wild kobolds, and dangerous mud monsters are common hazards for local farmers. Even legendary dragons and ancient demons exist, easily capable of wiping out entire kingdoms. This world features elite professionals who possess powerful character classes. These skilled fighters train constantly to master both deadly magic and combat skills. They become mages, warriors, druids, and rangers. None of these are just fairy tales. Their local weather, his heart, which was already dim, begins to beat faster. Regular folks cannot easily unlock these classes, but here is his secret advantage. He did not arrive empty-handed. A mysterious system book exists deep inside his mind. The golden words written on the cover spell out the adventurer's handbook. Focusing his mind, Gauss watches as three distinct sections slowly begin to unfold. He sees the attribute panel, the Monster Compendium, and a detailed map. A massive relief, this system cheat finally settles his racing heart. Looking closely, the main attribute panel displays his new name, Gauss. Strength is 5, covering raw carrying capacity and pure physical power. Agility is also 5, governing his flexibility and overall body coordination. Constitution is 5, deciding his stamina, metabolism, and natural healing speed. Intelligence is 6, enhancing his memory, sharp thinking, and overall mental strength. Perception and charm are 5, dictating his senses and personal presence. He currently has 0 skills. His attributes are completely average across the board. The lone extra point in intelligence is likely a transmigration bonus. He is, in other words, a perfectly ordinary guy. Let us hope that is enough. A small comfort. With a smile, he flips to the next mental page. This section details various threat tiers, ranging from ordinary to dangerous and elite. It continues up to legendary, ending with a sealed, mysterious final tier. Currently, only the ordinary section is unlocked for him to view. Even then, the beast icons remain faint, flashing a warning when touched. The system notifies him that target monsters must be slain first to activate. A secondary prompt explains that the index tracks his total kills. Reaching certain milestone counts will reward him with special gifts. Out of reward, this system map path is incredibly straightforward and generous. Kill monsters, fill the book, and claim the rewards. The final tab is a map. He directs his thoughts toward it, and a complete layout flashes in his mind. There is a simple stone house icon right at the dead center, representing his current location. A line of text prompts him to name the building. And as he whispers Sophia's inside his head, the icon instantly labels itself. Almost. Nothing else has been revealed yet, just the tiny strip of street right outside his door, and everything is shrouded in fog. The handbook handles exploration like any classic game. You walk, you reveal. He has not even left his room. He shuts the book in his mind, packs his gear, and heads downstairs for the day on his only budget-friendly option, breakfast. The first floor is a dining area and front desk combined. A few round wooden tables sit there, and every single one of them is completely empty at this early hour. He greets Sophia, orders his breakfast, and adds a polite thank you, because his previous life drilled polite manners into him that still have not died yet. Sophia's inn is an inn on the map, but in reality it feels much closer to one of those cheap youth hostels he remembers from back home, someone's old residence repurposed with cramped beds for wanderers without a permanent address. The Freelancers and traveling nomads. A single room costs 2 copper coins a day, or 30 coppers with the monthly discount, which is incredibly cheap for tavern standards. Breakfast costs 1 copper coin, while lunch and dinner are 2 each. This price gets him barely fed, certainly not fed well. Black bread, pickled greens, wild vegetable soup. Stewed beans, oatmeal. Meat is for someone else's life. A middle-aged blonde woman emerges from behind the service counter and greets him quite cheerfully. Calling him Little Gauss and teasingly asking if he overslept, he admits honestly that he just could not sleep last night, especially since his hunting catches are thinning out. He drops into a wooden chair at an empty table, and she softly insists that he still needs to rest. She returns with a heavy tray a couple of minutes later, carrying his breakfast, black bread, already sliced and looking incredibly hard, with a bowl of steaming vegetable soup sitting next to it. Once she retreats back into the kitchen, Gauss picks up a slice and taps it heavily against his wooden plate, and the resulting sound is like 2 actual blocks of hard timber colliding. He holds the tough bread up to the light. There are actual splinters. Forget it. He has to eat like the dead boy did. He drops the slab into the soup, waits for the heat, scoops a spoonful, and puts it in his mouth. The texture sliding down his throat is sticky and pretty nauseating. The exact kind of cheap food that actively scratches his throat, and even braced for it, he feels somewhat wounded. His past life was full of overstocked supermarkets and 3 solid meals a day on a regular salary, but this is the absolute cheapest food meant for the bottom tier of a fantasy world. Still, he forces himself to finish it, completely numb to the chewing by the end. When Sophia calls out to warn him to stay safe on the streets, he simply waves and steps outside into his very first morning on the wrong side of the universe. The bright sun has already climbed over the peaks of the distant mountains, and the initial morning light spills across the rustic stone rooftops of Graham Rock Town. Slowly, the frontier town wakes up properly against the edge of the massive emerald forest. Local merchants haul their goods through the streets, while small groups of heavily armed adventurers march past. Most of the other people are just freelancers, much like the poor kid he is currently inhabiting. The original Gauss was a half-starved hunter, wielding a simple dagger and basic traps. He patrolled the outermost edge of the forest, trapping wild rabbits and pheasants for 20 copper coins each when lucky, since meat was a luxury. Some days he caught 3 rabbits and made 50 to 60 copper coins. Other weeks he caught absolutely nothing, 4 or 5 days straight, and only wild vegetables, fruit, and medicinal herbs on his path back kept him from going home completely empty-handed. But add in the odd jobs hauling village produce to town stalls, and the kid barely scraped by. It was a rough life. He had survived alone for a year on inherited trapping skills and stubborn thrift, managing to slowly save 3 silver coins and 65 copper coins. His dream was a house in Grey Rock Town, where the cheapest started at 90 silver coins, even before property taxes kick in and keep bleeding you dry forever. By the dead boy's calculations, he was 30 years of grinding away from his own front door. Tough luck, kid. That hard-earned money for a house is exactly what the new soul plans to spend on hunting his first monster. He's not hunting regular game today. He's going to put a goblin underground and light up the entry inside the Monster Compendium and see what comes out on the other side. Escaping the lowest tier of freelancers starts with the Adventurer Handbook and nothing else. He sets out with the fierce determination of someone ready to do something incredibly stupid. But after an hour of wandering around Grey Rock Town, he realizes his plan is way harder than he imagined. Talk about a reality check. For a weak 5-stat civilian would be a lone, low-tier beast somewhere close to home, except close simply does not exist here. The town defense force sweeps the area regularly, while active adventurers constantly patrol the surrounding countryside. The result is that the few kilometers right outside of Grey Rock Town are totally scrubbed clean of anything he could actually hope to fight. To hunt anything, he has to leave the protected zone and brave the outermost edges of the emerald forest. Before leaving, he blows almost all his savings on things the original kid never bought: solid gear, confronting a monster with bare hands, even a weak one that ordinary folks can manage, is a one-way ticket to the grave. He only has one life, so caution is key. He visits the busiest markets in town. 80 copper coins for a well-maintained second-hand dagger. 1 silver coin buys a full set of cloth armor. Thick layered cloth with cotton lining, surprisingly tough to the touch. Sturdy enough to absorb a few hits. 20 copper coins gets him paralyzing poison From the local herbalist, he paints it onto the blade, letting it dry. Because according to the shop apprentice, any target he cuts will slow down. For a bit, 40 copper coins go toward a healing herbal paste to smear on. Open wounds and slow the bleeding. 30 copper coins for medical basics like linen. Bandages and wooden splints. That brings the total to 2 silver and 70 copper. Coins, his wallet comes out the other side holding 95 copper coins, and he refuses to spend a single cent more. If this adventure goes sideways, he still needs enough to keep himself fed, clothed, and safely sheltered for a while. A little peace of mind prevents desperate, risky decisions down the road. Luckily, the cheap dagger fits both his budget and his hands. The original owner was trained on blades since childhood, from basic skinning to clearing brush, and that muscle memory still perfectly guides his arm. Long. Sure, heavier weapons hit harder, but a second-hand sword costs double-digit silver coins, and he has never held one. Knowing your weapon matters more than the size of the blade. Armor is even worse. Decent leather starts at 10 silver coins, and metal, that is basically a whole different life. Before leaving town, Gauss sits down at the Nightingale Tavern near the edge of Greyrock and pays 30 copper coins for a real lunch: pickled fish in a small dish, sliced pickles, a few pieces of tender stewed meat, and noodles. The portions are small, but it is meat, a body running on black bread. For a year desperately needs the fat, he still regrets those copper coins. But a quick burp and waking muscles make him realize it was definitely worth it. Before a fight you eat, the body is your engine. Stretching, he pulls the cloth armor on over his shirt, slings a supply satchel across his body, tucks his cloth-wrapped dagger into his belt, and walks out the town gate. The country outside Greyrock town opens up massive, hard, dry, yellow dirt underfoot, with an endless wilderness on either side and blue sky overhead for safety. The woods near Greyrock were leveled years ago, replaced with farmland and wide grasslands with clean sightlines, partly so the guards can spot anomalies coming out of the emerald forest, and partly because dense woods favor monsters and put humans at a disadvantage. Trade is fair, the trees lose. He is not the only traveler. Lone hunters trudge alongside low-level adventure teams of 3 or 4, and once or twice he spots a real professional. You do not need to be told. The full plate armor, the wealth radiating off them, and the sheer ease of carrying that weight at speed creates an aura that pushes strangers back without a word. He looks down at his own thin frame, his disheveled cloth armor, his wrapped dagger, and his cheap equipment. It looks like a complete joke. Fight them, he would break in one hit. Easily, in his mind, he charges, his dagger scraping uselessly off rock-hard armor, without a scratch, before a single backhand sends him flying into the dirt. No getting back up if he were the man in that full plate. Killing a lone goblin to light up the codex would be easier than kicking a stray dog, and honestly, who can blame him for feeling bitter? But he laughs it off because that kind of petty jealousy is unbecoming. Anyone who has actually reached that professional level is not targeting goblins anyway. The whole reason he is out here is the handbook: 1 kill. Flips his codex on. After that, the weakness ends, the road eats up a long time. He passes it the way the dead boy did. Watching other travelers and talking himself up, a couple of teams ask if he wants in. Several of them actually. His kit must look barely presentable enough by bottom-tier standards to make him worth recruiting. He refuses. All of them. It is not arrogance. His combat strength is probably right in their neighborhood, and moving together would mean watching each other's backs. The problem is that the original Gauss always worked alone, and he does not know these strangers. Joining a team means fighting both the monster in front of him and whatever decisions the people behind him make. Better to walk in alone, pick his targets, and retreat when he wants. That option is completely off the table. The deep emerald forest swallows the sound of the road as he steps under the canopy. The light fades, strange birds shriek somewhere overhead, the noise pressing into his ears, and the air goes a few degrees colder. He pulls his dagger and holds his breath instinctively. The forest looks just like it feels, a long, dark, eerie throat ready to swallow whatever walks inside. The dense emerald canopy barely lets sunlight through, sending a cold shiver straight down his spine, the kind of chill that never lets up. Rookies wander in here for the first time and immediately get lost, but Gauss, he holds a massive natural advantage. The original Gauss actually made his living on the outer rim here. He knew several good hunting grounds and left clear markers at every single one. These are the classic trail signs carved into rough oak bark. On top of that, the Adventure Handbook conveniently lights up any ground his feet have already crossed. So, the first and quietest killer of rookies, the basic danger of getting lost in an endless maze of identical trees, will not take him out. Today, the original owner used to find human skeletons scattered on his rounds. Gear totally stripped, clothes gone, scavenged by the local monsters. Honestly, if it were not for those beasts, looting bodies alone could pay for it. Bought him a nice house. Gauss moves at a steady, cautious pace, leaning on old memories and the carved markers on the oak trunks until he reaches a quiet hunting ground chosen specifically for the local prey. Goblins roam this territory, but not too many of them. He is here on purpose. About a month ago, the kid had not caught a single thing for days, so he opened this ground, set traps, making a small living. Then one early morning, the sky just turning gray and the forest fog still thick, he came to check his traps and found fresh blood on the ground where the prey was stolen before he arrived. Someone beat him to the catch, a goblin. He tracks the small, barefoot prints. They were fresh, pressed deep into the soil after the previous day of heavy rain. No barefoot child would ever wander this deep into the dangerous emerald forest, and the size matched a common goblin perfectly. He abandoned this ground. Out of caution, he never came back, until now. Gauss refocuses, warning himself. He has to be careful, even if those prints back then belonged to only one goblin. It does not mean he is alone out here. He recalls everything. He knows about them: pointed ears, green skin, murky eyes, thin limbs. Never strong, always male, always short. They pack together, craving meat, eating berries occasionally, completely lacking any capacity for actual work. Driven by a cruel, mean-spirited bloodline, they survive purely by robbery and plunder from birth to death. They steal food, they kidnap women, and they cannot reproduce on their own, so they raid. Their favorite target is humans, since their builds are similar. Human villages know this horror all too well. They take food, tools, and women, leaving a long, filthy trail in their wake. In combat, a single goblin is exactly what you would expect: weak alone, easily beaten by an average farmer with a decent weapon. But they make up for it with sheer numbers. They ambush, they surround. If they multiply, whole villages get eaten. They breed fast, like rats. They have huge litters, near total survival, and mature in just a year. Going from infants to mature adults, they immediately go right back to raiding. Raiding to start the next cycle. The only good ending here is complete extinction. The goblin is his first target, neither his past self nor his modern memories feel even a shred of pity for a cruel monster like this. Pep talk over, he raises his guard. The goblins in his memories were weak. But since he has never actually killed one, he needs to be careful. A single mistake could be fatal, and any living thing will fight to survive. This is a real fight for survival, not some harmless video game. Taking a deep breath, he unties his satchel and buries it under a tree. Hidden under a thick layer of leaves, it is safe from passing eyes. His dagger is already painted with a fairly cheap, paralyzing poison. He deliberately chose a sunny window seat at lunch to let it dry. The herbal coat hardened nicely, leaving a strange green sheen on the metal. He is not expecting miracles from cheap poison, but 20 copper coins of slow is still useful. It only slows the beast down, it will not freeze it. The real weapon is the blade. He grips the hilt, letting the dead boy's muscle memory completely take over. After a few tense seconds, the grip and striking angles feel natural. He crouches low and starts brushing leaves aside to search the dirt. Searching for tracks is a hunter's habit. All living things leave traces, especially simple-minded monsters who never bother to cover up their tracks. Scat, food scraps, and drag marks. The forest is actually full of clues. Suddenly, he spots exactly what he wanted: a clear footprint in the dirt. It is barely 2 days old, meaning the goblin is still hunting nearby. The stolen catch from before probably left a pretty big impression on it. It likely keeps coming back for more easy prey. He follows the trail. More prints and scat appear as the trail leads deeper into the woods. It takes him far away from his usual hunting ground, straight toward a small pond. He pushes the bushes aside. A green-skinned little monster is sitting right there. It is resting on a low rock, sharpening a crude stone spear. It hums quietly while picking at its foot. He holds his breath, watching. Keeping his eyes locked on the target, he knows this is his ticket to a class. But he does not move just yet. First, he needs to carefully scan his surroundings. Aside from that rock, the pond clearing is completely wide open, with zero cover. It is great for a head-on fight, but terrible for a stealthy approach. The moment he leaves the brush, he faces 10 meters of completely exposed grass. 10 meters is a pretty short distance, but a very long way to charge. If he makes any noise, it will react. He needs to circle around. Sneak up quietly from behind and plunge his blade in before it realizes. Striking while the monster is grinding its weapon is his perfect opportunity. Even better if he strikes while its hands are off the spear. Armed against unarmed, prepared against unprepared, the physical advantage is entirely his. The fight should be completely one-sided. With the plan locked, he crouches low. He slips silently through the brush, positioning himself directly behind the target. Once in position, he grips the poison-coated dagger tight. His hand is steady. His hand starts shaking, nerves or excitement, take your pick, the sweat on his palm. Only makes him grip the rough handle tighter. He swallows, the little green creature on the rock still has its back turned, picking its foot and humming. Grinding its stone spear, it is completely relaxed, like a thing that has never been hunted a day in its life. Soon, the dagger in his hand will end. Its life, he closes his eyes and takes one more breath. In his past life, he never killed anything bigger than a stepped-on ant. Now, he is about to take a living being apart. The fact that goblins look vaguely human makes it heavier than he expected, but make no mistake, it absolutely deserves to die. The original host's childhood memories rush back on their own, triggered by the sight in front of him. More than a dozen goblins attacked the village he lived in when he was small. The adults banded together with pitchforks and sickles and drove them off, but his neighbor, a girl a few years older, was dragged away and never returned. He does not need to spell out her tragic fate. That same kind of tragedy has played out for thousands of years across this land. He opens his eyes. Again, any lingering hesitation is completely gone now. He jams his right thumbnail hard against his index finger's knuckle, and the sharp sting kills the tremor in his hand. His grip steadies. He crawls out of the bushes on hands and knees, keeping flat and holding his breath. Outside of chirping birds and the buzz of insects, the forest is silent. The wind is completely still. The pond does not have a single ripple. He stops about 3 meters from the goblin, close enough to see the coarse hair in its green skin's folds, watching the slight twitch of its muscles as it breathes. He rises slowly, like a kid playing red light, green light in the dark, letting the blood flow properly through his legs. Again, once his body loosens up, he takes one final breath, and now watch. A massive stride first. His toes dig into the dirt, and the recoil launches him forward. 3 quick steps, and he is on the rock. The goblin, deep in grinding its spear, jerks at the sudden noise and instinctively grabs for the spear. He won't give it any chance. Not today. His right boot stomps down hard on the wooden shaft, pinning it with his full weight. Its fingers close on empty air. It reaches again. He kicks the weapon away. Before it can sit up, he drops right on top of it, driving his left hand into its skull against the stone surface. He slams his knee down hard, pinning its back. The shriek that comes out is sharp, ugly, and muffled, yet incredibly loud as the creature thrashes wildly. Its snapping fangs are inches from his arm, and foul saliva spraying makes his eyes narrow on reflex. Even pinned face down, it still fights with an unbelievable will to live, slender arms swinging back at an unnatural angle to claw his forearm with sharp gray nails. The angle is terrible for force, and his cloth armor catches the worst of it. The scratches drag across cotton layers without doing much damage. Still, the sheer resistance pushing against his chest makes his breath go heavy, his heart pounding wildly. A low-level adventurer fighting a low-level monster. This is it. It is not a pretty sight. He refuses to give it any breathing room, bearing down. Down with his left hand to keep its head pinned, he grips his dagger, lines up the soft spot on the side of its neck, and drives it in with all his. And his elbow strikes at once. The green glowing blade slices through dark green skin like a knife cutting through soft tofu. A red plume spurts from the wound like spilled mercury. His arm and sleeve are soaked instantly. He tastes copper in the back of his throat from how heavily he is breathing. The monster beneath him is still trying to fight despite bleeding out. He grits his teeth and twists the dagger deep inside the wound to make it bleed faster. The sickening noise out of its mouth turns into a broken bellows, letting out short gurgling sounds. Seconds later it stops. He gasps, stands up off it, and drives the heavy dagger into the monster twice more. Once into the left chest, once into the right. Double check. That does it. then he drops the blade, sitting down on a rock to let his exhausted muscles completely give up. As a hunter, his body has the reflexes and stamina. His mind simply has not caught up. His chest is heaving for air, the heartbeat in his ears deafening as he stares at the green corpse with his sticky red arm. The world refuses to feel real for a few endless seconds. No game, no adventure. This is actual killing. He sits alone in silence. Once his breathing starts slowing down, the worst of the first kill nausea slowly backs off. Humans adapt fast. He is still a bit shaken up mentally, but he has fully accepted what he just did. The System Handbook officially announces his first goblin kill, triggering the compendium, which comes online. Total kills 1, first blood, a reward arrives, the 0-level cantrip Mage Hand from the Mage class, and boosting his intelligence by 1. The next milestone requires 10 total monster kills. The book also notes his singular goblin kill and awards him the title Goblin Hunter, with a direct note that this title will upgrade as his kill count climbs. The current effect under the title is Bane, which adds 10% attack damage in combat against goblins and related evolved species. Quite a start. Right the moment he focuses on the handbook properly, several notifications stack up at once as a strange power surges through his whole body, comes flowing right back and converges directly inside his skull. A warm current rolls through him, warming his brain and limbs all at once, like sinking into a hot spring. It is like 100 invisible small hands gently kneading his body, and the comfort is so intense he almost loses himself. Head buzzes. When he opens eyes, the world has stripped away its veil, appearing sharper and brighter on every edge. Something brand new prints itself directly into his consciousness, the shape of a spell called Mage Hand. The fight he just walked out of, the aching muscles and the rattle of raw nerves drains out of him as if the system granted him a fresh body. He checks the status panel. His strength is still 5, his agility 5, his constitution 5, his perception 5, and his charm 5, but his intelligence jumped from 6 to 7. Under skills, a single line appears. 0-level cantrip Mage Hand at level 1. Proficiency 1 out of 10. The most immediate gift of 7 intelligence is memory, the original Gauss's memories, which he has been pulling up piece by piece. They are now thoroughly digested and fully absorbed in just an instant. His recall feels sharper than it ever was in his previous life. The point does not feel exactly like raw intelligence quotient, though. His reasoning sharpens slightly, but only a little, and the rest of the lift lands on his memory sharpens, bringing a newfound mental clarity, but that is not all. A faint magic power born from this change begins to stir inside him, weak but real. It feels like a child running around a brand new house. Mage Hand is unlocked. Once his mana stabilizes, he can finally start practicing, but not in these woods. He pushes the thought down. No time. The Monster Compendium is what matters now. Next, the system quests for his Monster Compendium update. 10 kills is the milestone. Defeat enough of any single species, and the corresponding rewards will unlock. System rules are honest and fair. Shaking off the screens, he returns to reality. The goblin lies dead. Time to loot. He grabs the discarded stone spear. Testing its weight, the spear shaft feels surprisingly sturdier than he expected. He takes it. Right now, his only weapon is a tiny, cheap dagger. This is an upgrade. However, there's no telling how much durability this crude stone weapon actually has. Even the body's original owner never carried spears or bows. The wilderness was dangerous. Direct hunting in these woods was risky, far less efficient than setting simple traps. And honestly, that ultra-cautious strategy is why the kid still has all his limbs. He tried wooden weapons a few times. They all broke. He gave up. The kid eventually gave up on them. Looking closely, the goblin wears only a dirty rag. It smells absolutely rancid. He decides not to strip it since it is worthless anyway. A smelly loincloth is better left on the corpse. There is literally nothing of value here. Since this kill was outside an official guild quest area, he cannot claim any bounty. The only item worth keeping is a crude beast tooth necklace hanging around its neck. Cutting it free, he leaves the wild forest to clean up the carcass. He retrieves his hidden satchel from beneath the massive oak tree, moving quickly. The lingering smell of blood is bound to attract far worse predators. Because let's be real, lingering after a kill is a mistake nobody survives twice. He does not take a proper breath until he is safely away from the scene. His very first monster kill went much smoother than he could have hoped. Time to head back. Hunting 10 monsters tonight is out of the question. He only managed that clean kill by utilizing the previous host's knowledge. A carefully planned ambush is a luxury he will not always have out here. In the wild, these low-level creatures usually roam around in packs. Two fists cannot easily defend against multiple opponents, striking from all directions. He is simply not ready to take on a group without getting hurt. Returning home to absorb his gains is his best bet before pushing his luck. Keeping a close eye on his map, he carefully retraces his steps. Merging from the dense tree line onto the main road, seeing other people brings relief. From there, he follows the familiar path back. By the time he reaches town, dusk has already begun to settle over the gray rock checkpoint. The setting sun dips behind the distant peaks, casting a warm golden glow. Last bits of light wash over the stone rooftops, making the town briefly golden. Most of the journey was just walking. The actual fight lasted only minutes. Once the guard waves him through the gates, he makes a firm decision. He absolutely needs a mount, otherwise travel will exhaust him before the battle starts. Since he is focusing on magic, his physical stats are still painfully average. He must manage his stamina far more carefully than any ordinary warrior. He stops at a local bathhouse. The hot water turns his skin red, washing his fatigue away. Of him along with the steam, he sheds his cloth armor for loose linen, and suddenly he feels completely human again. After a tough fight, a body needs proper rest and some fun. Nobody can hold tension forever without something. Snapping, the summer night in Grey Rock Town brings a clean, cool breeze that feels like fresh spring water. The deep blue sky is freckled with stars, while the market square in the town center glows with pine resin torches. Open-air stalls line the streets with canvas awnings hanging from bamboo poles. Soft wind chimes clink in the breeze. Ceramic pots full of food release mouthwatering aromas, completely filling the night air. The previous owner was too stingy to ever enjoy the town at night. Walking through it now, he feels absolute wonder. Honestly, can you blame him? Most of the stalls sell food, but there are also fortune tellers, cheap trinkets, and a string puppet show drawing a massive crowd. Night watch guards with long swords resting on their hips patrol the perimeter to keep order. The town is bright and peaceful after dark. He loves it. He stops by a merchant to ask how much the goblin tooth ornament is worth. The merchant leans in, examining it. Carefully, he speaks with the absolute certainty of an experienced trader, guessing that it was plundered from a wild goblin. He nods and confirms the guess, admitting that he took down a goblin in the emerald forest earlier that afternoon. The trader offers him 1 silver coin, explaining that buyers looking for primitive, wild trinkets are incredibly rare in these parts, making the item quite hard to sell. He adds that this is the standard rate, suggesting he check other shops to verify it for himself. He is pretty satisfied with the price, considering 1 silver coin is almost a quarter of his entire savings. But since he is still new to this market, he decides to shop around first. Money is crucial to an adventurer. Gear, weapons, potions, training from a famous master, it all costs a fortune. Turns out, the old merchant was completely honest. Other offers hover around the same rate. He finally accepts 1 silver coin and 8 copper coins for the tooth. The next morning, he is up before sunrise, sitting cross-legged on his bed with deep focus. Mage Hand, the minor spell, is brand new, and he has never tested it in a real fight. For 30 minutes. He fails repeatedly, then, perhaps through sheer persistence, or maybe just lucky timing, he pulls it off once. The sensation is incredibly vivid, as if his mind sent the perfect signal, causing the magic inside his body to surge along a precise path, releasing a strange, invisible pulse. This magic ripples outward, weaving itself into a spectral phantom. Arm right in front of him, sitting on a straw bed with an invisible hand hovering before his eyes, a grin spreads across his face before he even notices. He directs the phantom hand to drift around the room, ordering it to grab the dagger off the wooden table. The weapon wobbles, floating slowly at the end of an unseen limb. He just cast a real spell, actual magic, the legendary power that his past life only saw in books and movies. The sheer thrill of it hits him just as hard as waking up in this fantasy world did, before he can test it any further. The magical arm breaks apart, sending the wrapped dagger thumping back onto the table. Clearly, he needs more practice. Then the system panel flashes mage hand level. Proficiency reaches 2 out of 10. That single tick keeps him sitting right there. He stays put, refusing to leave his room all morning. Most of his attempts still fail. Which makes sense, he fails over and over. If casting was easy, he wouldn't be here. His newly awakened magic power simply does not have the stamina for sustained casting. This is true even for a level 0 cantrip, the cheapest option on the table. Still, his hard work pays off, likely boosted by his intelligence score of 7. By the time his magic reserves are nearly tapped out around noon, something changes. He can now cast Mage Hand pretty smoothly. It took only half a day with 0 foundation. No guide, no master. He has no clue if his progress is fast or slow. He has no real way of knowing, but he is satisfied anyway. He pulls on his boots. Right on cue, his stomach growls, prompting him to head downstairs. Sophia is wiping down a table. She looks up at the sound of his footsteps, her face flashing a hint of surprise. Thin black hair, green eyes. He looks completely different today. He seems far more energetic than usual, his eyes bright with life. Sophia cannot quite pinpoint the change. It is also her first time seeing him at midday. Usually the original version slipped away long before dawn. She does not pry. He asks her if he can get some lunch, then quickly changes his mind and asks for double. High-quality food is not his main focus right now, especially with his empty pockets. He simply has to make do, because his body is genuinely starving for energy. Recovering that spent magic power takes a heavy physical toll. Sophia mentions lunch is almost gone. She offers to bring him the remaining portions, giving him the extra on the house. He thanks her. She quickly waves off his gratitude. Today's meal is oatmeal, stewed beans, and pickled beetroot. After yesterday's brick of sawdust bread, this meal is a massive upgrade. The crisp beetroot is cold pickled in a wonderfully sharp and tangy sour sauce. Several days slip past. He practices Mage Hand near the town while drilling with his dagger. He trains with the blade whenever his magic runs dry, pushing his proficiency up rapidly. Soon his status panel shows Mage Hand has reached level 2, 10 out of 20. The spell hit level 2 on day 1, but now the progress starts to slow. This repetitive grind will only go so far. Maybe real growth requires actual combat. He heads back toward town, letting his Mage Hand float his parcel right beside him. It hovers like a floating shopping bag. At level 2, he controls it with ease. The raw magic in his body is growing too, transforming from thin, fragile strands. Now he can weave it together like a small rope, though that is not entirely accurate. Magic isn't a liquid, it is closer to an intangible, formless presence. Beyond his own internal reserves, the entire world is steeped in ambient magical energy. It flows through every corner like invisible ley lines, waiting to be tapped. Casting a spell feels like physically reshaping that raw, ambient energy. He guides it using his own power, channeling the spell engraved onto his very will. This allows him to manifest an effect in a precise location, the size of that effect. It depends entirely on the quality and volume of his mana and the spell itself. Mage Hand is quite cheap. The simple cantrip barely drains his internal magic reserves. Its range is roughly 10 meters. Any further and the spell completely dissolves. It is not a weapon. Think of it as a handy utility tool instead. He can use it to lift objects or unlock doors from a distance. Still, he is already planning how to utilize its 10-pound force to disrupt his enemies. He can shove them at the worst moment to break their guard before he strikes, or before the fight even starts. He can drop a dagger from above, letting gravity do the heavy lifting. The drop trick only works when the enemy has no clue he is there, but simple disruption gets the job done when a dagger cannot. A tiny invisible hand grabbing an ankle, a shove, or a pull at the perfect moment can be deadly, even with very little force, if the timing is right. Combat isn't just about trading blows, it ends in a single instant. That is it. The Adventurers Guild of Greyrock Town is a 3-story stone building painted bright red, standing at the dead end of the main road across from the square. The banner over the porch showing a sword, shield, and staff snaps in the wind as eager adventurers constantly stream inside. The kid whose body he is inhabiting has lived in Greyrock Town for over a year without ever setting foot inside. The absolute most he ever did was sneak a quick glance through the doorway while passing by. The reason wasn't a guild rule but sheer inferiority. Talk about sad, he felt only experts belonged there, and that wandering inside would only invite mocking stares and questions. Walking past 2 heavily armed guards at the entrance, he casually strolls inside like any seasoned veteran. The first floor is a massive public hall that looks a lot like the government offices from his past life. The crowd is packed, with armored warriors carrying weapons and talking in small, Groups, one complains that his sword got completely ruined fighting a monster last time, and the measly reward didn't even cover the repair bill. Another warns that while goblins look weak on their own, facing more than 3 of them is a nightmare. He looks around, spotting half-orcs, gnomes, and dwarves all mingling together. Though the majority of the crowd is still human, a massive reception desk curves along the back of the room with several busy receptionists, while the nearby stone walls are covered in posted job boards. One flyer offers 3 silver coins for 5 slime cores on a long-term basis. Another offers 50 copper coins for each intact blood-tooth fern plant harvested. He stands there staring at the massive wall of options, feeling a bit overwhelmed, before deciding to just ask the desk directly. The young woman working the counter has a neat appearance and polite posture. She warmly greets him as receptionist Petra, employee number E21051. She is professional and well-trained. He explains it is his first time and asks how he can start taking on quests. She explains he must first register as an official solo adventurer, noting that the registration fee is 1 silver coin, asking if he can pay. He agrees and slides a shiny silver coin out of his pocket, feeling incredibly relieved. He sold that goblin ornament a few days ago, because otherwise he would be standing here completely broke and deeply embarrassed. She passes over a registration form, which he quickly fills out with his name, age, and basic physical stats, address, and his combat skills before handing it back. She reaches under the desk and in a matter of seconds pulls out a sleek white badge, explaining that this serves as his personal ID and proof of rank, which he will need to show whenever accepting or turning in a quest. She also warns that replacing a lost one costs another silver coin. The badge is diamond-shaped, made of white metal with beautiful plant carvings. The craftsmanship is quite impressive. He asks Petra if there are any combat quests involving goblins, ideally with smaller group numbers, since they are the absolute most common. He sticks to low-level monsters. Psychological inertia is a real thing. Having already killed one, he feels a bit more confident. He has not fought anything else, and names alone do not show how strong they are. The clerk thinks for a moment, pointing him toward a section of the wall to show him some goblin requests where the targets are basically double digits and up, as villagers will not pay bounties for small numbers if the goblins are not actually threatening them. He thanks her and walks over. The goblin wall is, as advertised, mostly groups. A common bounty quest for 10 silver coins describes a sheep pen at Stoneclaw Village being attacked by a group of goblins, asking for the clan near the village to be wiped out. Estimating 10 to 15 goblins, requiring a complete left ear as proof of death. Within a 5-day limit, another quest pays 50 copper coins per head and asks adventurers to assist guards in clearing goblins from the main road between town and the Emerald Forest. Long-term, it requires a complete left ear. As proof, postings are everywhere. Every village and outpost in the surrounding area routes its tasks through this guild, the only one in the entire region. Goblins attack villages and rob caravans constantly, yet there are no postings for lone goblins, outside of long-term assignments without specific locations. Every harassment job targets a pack of double-digit goblins, armed with a 0-level cantrip. Gauss stands there, brow furrowed, when a low conversation drifts out of the next aisle. The word goblin catches his ear. Immediately, he is not eavesdropping on purpose, but a voice mentions White Birch Village. Is a bit far, asking if 7 or 8 is doable. A second voice says relax. Trash-like goblins can be dropped with a single arrow. The party turns out to be 1 male and 2 females, all of them maybe 18 years old. The girl with long, curly brown hair wears form-fitting armor with a bow on her back and a dagger tucked into her long boot. Sharp-eyed, she talks with her hands on her hips, clearly the leader. The other girl is shorter and quieter, short black hair bangs straight across her eyebrows, gaze evasive, 2 daggers at her waist. The young man stands with his arms crossed and his back against a pillar, expressionless, with a long sword at his hip. All 3 wear high-quality equipment, far more stylish than his, leather and light armor in good condition, weapons bright and clean, in fact a little too clean, as if they had not actually been used yet. Newcomers like him then. The archer girl holds a quest slip. 7 or 8 goblins, less than the wall numbers, in a 4-person team. Even with the money split, it would be safer. As a mage, he needs a front line. And that is exactly what they have. He walks up and greets them, saying his name is Gauss, that he is a new adventurer, asking if they are looking For more members, the voice from out of nowhere startles all three. The short-haired girl flinches instantly. The archer girl looks him over with the kind of scrutiny strangers earn first and does not answer. From the resistance in her expression, she seems to be leaning toward no. He is thin, wearing a washed-out linen tunic with a few drafty holes at the hem, and the only weapon he is wearing is a battered dagger. Calling him an adventurer is generous. He looks more like a young man down to his last meal, taking one last shot at not starving. His only real selling point is his face, clean-cut, with dark hair and bright green eyes that instantly demand a double take. However, the archer is not about to recruit a mere decorative prop. She is rehearsing a rejection. Suddenly, the swordsman near the pillar breaks the quiet. He explains that they are also rookies, suggesting a veteran party is better for experience. His voice is listless, but his advice is actually pretty kind. He tells him it is fine, explaining that his target is also goblins and he has not been able to find a single solo commission, so a temporary team is ideal. Honestly, he is not even looking for veterans anyway. Most are just stuck in the bottom tiers, and he would definitely prefer to avoid them. Just then, the archer girl says she needs to discuss this with her crew. He tells her no problem and steps back to give them space. He was never going to force it. He came in with a casual trial run attitude. If they reject him, he will just look elsewhere. Suddenly, she stops him, asking if his primary weapon is a standard dagger, or if he has other combat specialties. Of course, this simple question is a total setup. She is mentally preparing to tell him they already have a dagger user and simply cannot take him. He quickly replies for close combat he uses a dagger, and as for other skills, he was once a skilled hunter and never gets lost outdoors. Plus, he just learned a spell. All three instantly whip their heads around. Their completely stunned expressions look exactly like people who just heard something that is flat out impossible. The archer girl asks if he is a mage. He admits he is not sure if it really counts, but he has indeed mastered a single spell. No use hiding it now. Since he already asked to team up, being overly secretive is a waste of energy. Because words alone are pretty cheap, he decides to instantly activate his spell. Right away, the twists faintly, an invisible phantom hand begins to coalesce. He holds his dagger out, and the unseen force grabs the hilt, swinging the blade twice through the completely empty air. The archer girl watches the weapon slash at nothing, her eyes lighting up. She steps closer, asking what spell that is. He tells her it is Mage Hand, which lets him easily conjure an invisible grasp, keeping the rest of his skill details private. He still does not know if they will even let him join the team. If he reveals everything now and gets rejected, it would just be a total waste. She nods repeatedly, her eyes shining as she says she likes the sound of it. She is clearly incredibly passionate about magic. She asks him to wait while she huddles with her companions in the corner. However, they are not far enough to hide their voices. He can hear them anyway. One asks if they should really trust a stranger. Another points out that he is a mage, and a third notes that having magic is incredibly safer. The first mission has about 8 goblins, so caution is definitely best. Their discussion is very short. They head back, and the archer girl tells him her crew has no objections. She welcomes him to the party, hoping they work well together. She holds out her hand. He gladly shakes it, politely asking them to look after him on the upcoming quest. First, he asks for their names. She introduces herself as Haley and explains her specialty is the bow, providing crucial ranged support. Then she pauses briefly to add that she can also cook. The short-haired girl says her name is Mia, and she uses a dagger. The swordsman introduces himself as Bell, wielding a heavy longsword. Haley super enthusiastic knowing he is a mage. Mia remains shy, while Bell is. There is also the quiet, listless one. Their personalities vary, but none seem like bad people. When he asks if they are locals, Haley confirms they are childhood friends from Barry. Even though he has lived in Greyrock Town for over a year, he has never spotted them before. On that very first day, Haley treats the team to a local tavern for a celebratory feast. All three of them come from pretty comfortable families, not high nobility, but they never worry about food or clothes. Roasted meat, ale, salted sturgeon, and venison sausage. He digs into the most extravagant meal he has had since waking up in this world. Sizzling, thick slabs of roasted meat come drizzled in the tavern's secret sauce. The second his teeth sink in, the rich juices meet the savory salt of the sauce detonating on his tongue. Next is the sliced venison sausage, rich, beefy, with a strange, smoky and fruity finish. The chefs in this world definitely know what they are doing, especially compared to the dry black bread, bland oatmeal, and pickles he has been living on lately. But wait until you see this bill, it is absolutely brutal. 3. Silver and 40 copper coins. This single dinner literally wipes out his entire net worth. He opens his mouth to suggest splitting the bill, but shuts it immediately. Between his registration fee and this feast, he honestly cannot afford his share. As embarrassment flushes his face, Belle leans over and whispers not to be too polite. Haley's family is in trade, so they have plenty of money. He nods. The wealth gap in this fantasy world is completely wild. When the original kid first left home as a teenager, he only had 30 copper coins, spare clothes, and 1 pound of black bread. After over a year of hard grinding, he had barely saved 3 silver coins, the price of 1 dinner. He shakes his head. It is reality, not discouragement. The future still belongs to him, and empty pockets are temporary. Once he gets rich, he will treat them back. He rubs the worn coin pouch on his belt and follows them out. By the next morning, they are already on a merchant caravan, leaning against mail bags and packages in the back of a bumpy wagon. The distant hills slide away behind them. While Belle and Mia rest inside, Haley is in high spirits, dangling her legs off the edge of the wooden floorboard, swaying with the bumps as she watches the wilderness roll by. Today's sky is crystal clear, blue as transparent sapphire, with golden sunlight cutting right through the thin clouds. In the distance, light green mountains are softened by a gentle haze. The entire wilderness breathes fresh with grass, green trees, and forest dew. After registering at the guild, the 4 of them spent a quick afternoon getting to know each other, setting off the next morning for White Birch Village. That walk would take 2 days, but he suggested hitching a ride on a merchant caravan partway and walking the rest. The group loved the idea, finding a caravan quickly, half a wagon in exchange for a well-equipped team of adventurers to act as escorts was a great trade for the merchants. Eventually, Haley gets bored of the scenery and turns to him to chat. Yesterday's dinner and their quick training session helped them learn how the others fight, making everyone feel a lot more comfortable around one another. She notes with a light laugh that she really did not expect him to be a mere preparatory mage. He apologizes jokingly for ruining her high image of wizards, but she tells him it is fine. The other spellcasters she knows have all been incredibly wealthy, while he is just a bit different. As a kid, she actually wanted to become a mage, but lacked the raw talent. The chatter continues as the caravan rolls across endless grasslands. They travel through deep, shadowed woods, around jagged mountains, and across wide rivers to their drop point. The journey is safe, no monster ambushes, no surprises. He sighs in relief, yet feels a strange, sudden pang of regret as they part ways. The driver points down the dirt road. White Birch Village is an hour away. Just follow it to the end, turn left at the fork, and head to the second village. Haley thanks the manager. He waves them off with a warning. Goblins are small, but they must never let their guard down. They watch the carriage go. As the caravan vanishes, the entire valley feels empty. They push on without rest. They reach the village just as the last of the sunlight dies. Dark trees border the dirt road on both sides, and the cold dusk wind chills their necks. Haley has gone quiet. The 4 of them step carefully forward. A crooked wooden sign reads White Birch Village. Before they even step inside, loud panic echoes from the central square. Then they hear crying. His heart sinks. And you just know whatever happened is tied directly to their mission. Inside the village, a bonfire throws dim, flickering light. Angry men wave their arms, screaming that they must gather forces right now. They must rescue Jenny and Aisha, but others hesitate. They argue that it is already pitch black and they should wait for morning. But the crowd cuts them off. Waiting is a death sentence. Those filthy, green-skinned bastards are not going to give this village any time to prepare. Grief-stricken women sit on the ground, wailing hysterically for their lost children. Haley calls out over the noise, asking if this is indeed White Birch Village. She announces they are the adventurers who accepted the quest, demanding to see the chief. Instantly, the shouting dies down. Under weary stares, an old man leaning heavily on a walking stick steps forward. He introduces himself as the village chief. He apologizes for the lack of hospitality, explaining their situation is incredibly dire. Haley tells him it is fine, asking for the exact details of their mission. She pulls out the official guild commission document to prove who they are. He sighs in deep relief. Two of their women have been carried off by a local goblin tribe. The monsters have roamed the jungle for months, but never attacked humans before. Before this, the absolute worst they did was steal an occasional sheep, chicken, or duck. To stop the losses, the villagers pooled their coin to post a bounty. They posted the bounty in Greyrock Town, and the goblins suddenly went quiet. No sightings, no losses. The villagers relaxed, expecting adventurers to show up and clear out the nest. But today, just as day was sliding into night, two women were snatched in an instant. Now it is pitch black, making any movement through the forest impossible. Except for the victims' families, the rest refuse to risk their lives. Nobody wants to enter the dark forest to fight. Humans are selfish. So the village split, with the rational side arguing to wait. Night combat is incredibly dangerous, and there is absolutely no hope of rescue. The families insist that waiting for morning is too late, since the girls were taken very recently, making every second critical. They argue that these goblins are only child-sized, and if everyone bands together, they can bring the women back. Honestly, both sides are right. The chief is completely torn. Just then, the four adventurers walk in, and although he stays silent, he has already pinned his hopes on them, from his perspective, except for the black-haired boy. The team is decked out in decent gear, boasting serious combat power. That is something these desperate villagers completely lack. Everyone stares at the group, waiting. Haley bows politely, requests a brief moment to discuss, and pulls her team aside. The village square goes dead silent, a heavy tension that you can practically feel. Everyone is waiting. A completely unknown rookie team now holds this village's entire future. Looking at the pleading eyes of these silent people, the black-haired boy feels the weight. Suddenly, reality sets in. Real adventure is never simple, and it is full of surprises. He had arrived here expecting a standard, low-risk hunt, just reach the village, rest, and then scout tomorrow to plan a perfect strike, but that orderly plan has completely shattered at the very first step. Belle asks if they are starting tonight. Their original strategy was simply to rest overnight and begin their operation tomorrow. This sudden turn of events has ruined everything. Haley sighs, mentioning the two captured women. If they do not save them tonight, it will be too late for them. But fighting these monsters in the dark raises the risk immensely. She nervously twists her hair. The young man points out that they have not done any scouting yet. Mia agrees it is suicide. None of them are experienced adventurers, and instinct screams. Dark is bad. Goblins can always see far better than humans in blackness. Logic says wait for sunrise, scope out the nest, then strike, but doing that means the captives will face unspeakable, irreversible harm. They came all this way for an extermination job. He sighs, stuck with a choice with no easy answer. Haley wipes her damp forehead, suggesting they vote and honor the team's final decision. She begins a tense countdown, 3, 2, 1. And they all give their answer at once. He lags slightly behind the others, but arrives at the exact same word, go. His modern upbringing simply will not let him stand by coldly. Haley gasps in relief as everyone reaches the same conclusion. He steps in, suggesting they recruit locals who know these dangerous woods and secure plenty of torches. Crucially, they must prioritize their own survival because saving those girls is completely impossible if the rescue team dies. His map prevents him from getting lost, but he knows absolutely nothing of the uncharted terrain, requiring guides who do. It is their only path to minimizing the risk. The others agree, and they break the news. Relieved villagers flood them with grateful tears. They plead for Jenny and Aisha. The victims' relatives immediately step forward to help. 4 determined men, who would have rushed the nest alone, volunteer as their guides. They quickly gather their weapons and equipment to avoid wasting any precious time. With torches high, the group departs. The villagers know the general area of the nest, and 2 guides lead the march, clutching pitchforks and bright, burning torches. Moving with frantic, hurried steps, these 2 are actually the fathers of the captured girls. Right behind them, the 4 rookie adventurers whisper to coordinate their battle plan. Haley delegates Belle and Mia to hold the front line and engage head-on. Haley fires from the flank, while he pins goblins with magic to open paths for the swords, and he plans to switch to his dagger if the fighting gets too close. Belle and Mia agree to this setup despite taking on the most dangerous positions. He agrees too. They trained together all of yesterday afternoon, though who knows how much of that training actually survives their very first real monster encounter. Still, the 3 are surprisingly capable. Each has already mastered a crucial prerequisite skill for professional adventurers and uses it With great proficiency, Mia has thrust, a swift forward lunge with her twin blades that allows her to chain multiple strikes on a single enemy. Bell has cleave, simple name, but it channels a massive burst of force directly into his blade for heavy hits. Haley relies on precision, which boosts her eyesight and weapon grip strength so she never misses a mid-range shot. Then there is his own mage hand spell. Honestly, despite their total lack of real combat experience, this rookie squad is, on paper, stronger than many standard beginner teams. That is why he joined this mission. A small pack of 7 or 8 goblins, even under cover of night, is no threat. To an organized squad where every member possesses a skill, they just need to strike first and drop a monster each, turning the battle into simple, separate duels. The 2 elder village fathers ask them to please hold off the front lines, promising they will rush to help once they finish dealing with their own targets. The rookies confidently assure them that dealing with a single goblin each is no trouble. Soon they arrive at the cave entrance, a natural opening about 2 meters wide. Descending into a deep, pitch-black abyss, the villagers confirm this is the right spot. They peer inside but see nothing. The mouth is damp and slick with green moss, and a foul, pungent stench of stale urine drifts out. Halting outside, he waves to catch the others' attention, preparing to explain his plan to use Mage Hand. He wants to project the spell 10 meters inside for a quick, safe scout. Suddenly, a piercing shriek erupts right next to him, startling him at the worst possible moment. He whips around toward the sudden noise, spots the source, and curses silently. A sharp-eared, green-skinned goblin scout is scrambling from the nearby bushes, screaming out. Warning, talk about a disaster. They had a lookout outside. Instantly, time slows to a crawl as his thoughts clear, entering a state of absolute focus. He grips his dagger tightly, sidesteps gracefully, and thrusts the blade toward the creature's throat. The goblin scout reacts on pure instinct, attempting a desperate dodge to save itself. But an invisible pressure suddenly bursts from right behind its back. It is his Mage Hand. The phantom limb shoves the monster hard forward. It is not incredibly powerful, but it is more than enough to break its balance at the most critical split second. His sharp blade carves a smooth arc through the green neck, sending blood spraying. Like crushed tofu, one fluid reflex of physical strike and perfect magic has ended it. The scout's throat is completely torn open, and the loud shriek instantly dies down. Into a wet hiss, his menu logs his second monster kill. The limp body thuds down, head nearly severed, as its dull yellow eyes stare up at him, seemingly trying to memorize the human who easily cut it down. He orders the others to prepare for combat. They never expected him to move so incredibly fast, but there is simply no time to be amazed right now. The alarm has already alerted the cavern, and maddened cries begin echoing from the dark. A swarm of angry, shrieking goblins begins pouring out of the nest as footsteps multiply. Out of the shadows, pairs of glowing red eyes start flickering into view. 1 pair, 2, 8, 12, 13. He counts them silently in his head. But the math is completely wrong, so he shouts a warning to the others. The numbers are off, way too many. The intel was completely flawed. A dozen more pairs of red eyes lock onto them, like the cave itself is crawling forward. His heart pounds, his hand clamps down tight on the handle of his dagger. Right here, he learns a brutal second lesson about surviving out in the wild. Never blindly trust mission intel. 18. He keeps landing on that exact number. The guild said there were only 7 or 8, but the actual count is 18. There is absolutely no time to ask the Adventurers Guild what went wrong with their paperwork. The 4 village fathers can maybe pin down 1 goblin each if they get lucky. That leaves 14 monsters, meaning everyone has to take on at least 3 at once. On paper, that sounds doable, but in the pitch black, absolute madness. Green faces hiss through rotting, yellow teeth as the raw weight of danger hits. It feels completely different than facing just a single goblin on its own. You fight 1 goblin, but you have to survive a pack. Suddenly, they erupt. They flood the clearing, splitting the fight into pockets. Everyone gets swarmed by their own nightmare. A spear-wielding goblin lunges straight at him, its murky eyes locked onto his face. Its lips tremble with greed, thick drool dripping from its rotting yellow teeth. The beast throws its weight into a crude, stone spear wrapped in vines. It thrusts the weapon straight up at his throat, and his vision suddenly slows down. A switch flips, he spots another goblin sneaking up from behind. A third monster is already circling to his flank. He is almost completely surrounded. These green-skinned runts ring him in the span of a single breath. His accelerated thinking analyzes the danger, but his legs still have ordinary stats. He kicks hard off the dirt, throwing himself sideways into the only open escape angle. The spear and dagger slice through empty air, right where his body was just standing. Cold sweat beads, his high intelligence is his only outstanding stat. Physically, he is just an average guy, meaning his brain reacts but his body lags. He has to survive in that dangerous gap where his muscles move half a beat late. The three goblins close back in before he can even try to counterattack. He wants to take one down with another clean, decisive slash like the scout. But reality keeps him dodging and desperately moving just to stay alive. Parrying is useless, just move. People forget how strong these beasts are. They are highly muscular and pack far more raw power than their size suggests. Facing these three head-on is a completely different beast than ambushing that lone scout. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes from somewhere just off to his left. He glances over while keeping his feet moving, the first casualty. One of the village fathers is on his knees, with a long spear impaling his gut. Blood sheets out, forming a dark, growing pool in the dirt. A goblin pounces on him, digging into the wound with a jagged knife. It is like a hyena nuzzling open ribs, a sick grin plastered on its face. It wears the joyful expression of a sadistic torturer enjoying their private work. The fallen torch lies in a pool of blood, still burning brightly. It casts the terrifying shadows of long-eared monsters across the surrounding trees. It's too much like a slaughter ritual to register as anything else. His mouth goes dry, his eyelids twitch. He has never had the shadow of death lean over him this close, and those demon silhouettes make his scalp crawl. He cannot afford to be afraid right now, or he will be the next one on the ground. He grits his teeth and the flustered noise in his head drops out, replaced by a strange, cold quiet. The bloody scene that hit his soul has hammered him into something steadier, or, more honestly, the threat of dying right here has forced the coward in him to one side, leaving the part of him that wants to live in charge, a clean bowstring. Snaps somewhere behind the trees, a black arrow whistles past his ear and goes through the goblin, pinning the dying father, pinning it in place where it stood. Haley stands with her chest heaving, eyes blazing. The shot was not technically necessary for the fight, but he thinks she needed to take it for her own sake as much as anything. A second goblin uses her open beat to close on her with a short blade raised at her neck. He sees it the way he has started seeing things in this slowdown state. All the relevant pieces are clear in one glance. And he casts Mage Hand. The invisible hand condenses beside her and slams the goblin's wrist sideways, 10 pounds of unseen force shoving the slash off true. The blade clangs against the light armor over her back instead of her skin. The impact rattles up through her ribs, and a thread of blood traces down her lip. From a bitten cheek, she staggers, the metallic taste filling her mouth, then catches herself, draws the dagger from her boot, and opens the shattered goblin. From chest to stomach in one ferocious cut, its intestines spill and it goes down, still trying to refuse what has happened to it. She looks across the clearing, and honestly, that is the look you only give the person who saved you alive. She whispers her gratitude, but he does not even have the breath to answer. He nods. Whatever gene the green-skinned runts carry about mages, his using one in front of them has triggered it. More of them peel off other engagements and come for him specifically, 6, maybe 7 at once. Haley pulls another arrow without being asked and braces her bow with shaking arms. A second precision sings out, and a bloody hole punches clean through the chest of a goblin already half turned toward him. It sways on its feet with more air leaving its lungs than coming in. He covers the distance while it is still standing, slips behind it, and takes its head off cheap. 2 kills. The compendium ticks. The running total in his mind. Total kills 3. He looks at Haley. She looks at him. They do not need to talk about it. The battlefield is in pieces. Mia and Belle and the 3 remaining villagers are each in their own fight, and the only way any of them survive is if she and he clean up their quadrant first. He shouts cross, warning her not to keep burning skills. Every precision shot drains a chunk of her stamina, and they are nowhere near the end of this. Now that the panic is cleared, he can see his own advantage as well, as a human, even at strength 5 in Constitution, 5 in average physical stats across the board. He still outclasses an individual goblin on raw stamina and explosive power. The reason a normal person dies to 2 goblins at once is not strength, it is the inability to track multiple angles of attack at the same time, and intelligence. 7 gives him exactly that. faster thought, better routing plus a mage. He can summon his mage hand anywhere he needs it, moving with fluid grace as Haley's arrows keep flying. One shot strikes a goblin's upper arm, pinning. Another right through the waist. He reads the wounds quickly, dodging a third. Goblins swing to reach the injured beast. It raises a crude wooden club at him. As if a piece of cracked wood can save it, he moves right past. It's slipping behind for a clean, decapitating strike. The beast's shriek suddenly cuts out. 4 kills total. Without pausing, he targets the other arrow-struck monster just 2 steps away and drives his dagger into the open waist wound. He twists it hard, shredding everything inside. 5 kills total. Suddenly, the dagger feels a bit different. In his hand, a faint white light shimmers along the edge as the blade strikes, channeling a strange, surging energy from deep within him. This adds a massive, unexpected weight to his swings. He realizes exactly what is happening at that exact moment as glowing system text suddenly flashes right across his vision. The prompt alerts him that he has earned the Goblin Hunter title, which will upgrade. With more kills, its active effect is Nemesis and against goblins and their mutated kin, his attacks will deal an extra 10% damage. That explains the strange white shimmer. Instantly, all the lingering fear that was clawing at his chest completely vanishes. He is drenched in blood from collar to knees, gasping heavily for air while his stamina ticks down faster than expected. Yet his gaze is far more determined than it was just 5 minutes ago. He stares hard at the remaining 4 goblins, his blue eyes reflecting the flickering orange glow of a nearby torch. It must shake their nerves. Because the monsters begin to tremble, these creatures are cruel when winning, but incredibly cowardly when they start losing. That is a known rule. Their cruel side drove them out to attack, but now their cowardice is kicking in as they watch their pack get torn to shreds in the dirt. Plus, the heavy, unseen pressure of his nemesis effect is weighing on them. They feel it, and honestly, who is the real prey now? He grabs a rusty, discarded goblin short sword from the ground, unkempt as it is. It offers better reach than his dagger. Another arrow from Haley pierces a beast's lower leg, pinning it. He bolts across the blood-soaked soil to close the gap instantly, while the others remain frozen in absolute terror. He swings the blade diagonally. The edge bites deep and accelerates upon impact, triggered by the nemesis effect, cleanly slicing through the monster's neck and shoulder. Blood splatters across his face. 6 total kills now. Grunting softly, he keeps the blade moving. The next goblin tries to block his slash with a wooden club, but he pours raw power into his strike, sending the weapon flying. He breathes, braces his hips, and cuts it in half. 7 total kills. Nearby, Haley has scrambled up a tree branch, completely stunned. As she stares down at him, with her mouth hanging slightly open, she looks utterly shocked, staring at him like he is some kind of monster. He is running purely on adrenaline now, his mind completely focused. Though his limbs are trembling from exertion, his mind and body feel lighter than ever. He spits out the taste of blood and faces the last 2 beasts. Their courage is entirely gone, their hands shaking on their weapons. An invisible hand snaps down from above, packing 10 pounds of pure, unseen force. It rips the weapon right out of one goblin's hand, immediately targeting the other, to yank its blade away too, disarmed in less time than a single breath. They stand completely defenseless before her, stripped of any chance at resistance. She is not about to waste an opening like this. She closes the distance, gripping her rusty blade. With both hands, putting her hips into the swing, she slices both clean in half as they try to turn and bolt. A clean, even cut. That makes 8 kills. Suddenly, one escapes toward the dark tree line. She stomps her heel through a slick mess of goblin guts and lunges. Right after it, 3 rapid strides, and her rusty short blade plunges deep into its soft underbelly. With a brutal twist of her wrist, she shreds the monster's internal organs to pieces, forcing one final, desperate shriek from the creature as it collapses. Dead, she yanks the metal free, but her legs instantly buckle under the immense strain. Down she goes to one knee, bracing herself. Her lungs burn. Those active bursts used way too much stamina. Now that the immediate danger has cleared, her exhausted body is finally paying the heavy toll. 9 kills total, and get this, her basic cloth armor is completely torn across the chest. She has dozens of shallow cuts from weapons she never even realized grazed her. She can hear her own ragged breathing echoing in the quiet woods. Her limbs are trembling uncontrollably. She tells herself with a quiet groan that this really hurts, but she has to shake it off. If she wastes even a single second feeling tired, someone else is going to pay with their life. Honestly, she performed way past her usual limits tonight, after taking down that first scout. She single-handedly slaughtered 7 more monsters back to back, defying all realistic calculations for her class. No newly awakened cantrip mage should be capable of this. Thankfully, Haley's brilliant. Archery did half the heavy lifting. Her shots kept shifting the pack and opening critical gaps for her short blade to strike. Without that crucial flanking support, the scale would have tipped against them instantly. Still, the rest came down to her sheer willpower to keep swinging even when her muscles screamed at her to stop. Fortunately, the beasts broke their resolve first. She pushed through a severely depleted stamina bar, and that was the ultimate deciding factor between life and death. Up in the branches, Haley finally lowers her weapon. Her arms are leaden and sore from firing in rapid succession. Clearly pushed past her limits. Suddenly, a horrific shriek echoes nearby. It is Belle. 9 more goblins remain on the far side. Mia, Belle, and 3 surviving villagers are still fighting for their lives, but Belle just let out a cry she never wanted to hear. Belle is down on the ground. His right Achilles is a shredded, bloody mess, torn down to the bone. He is wailing in absolute agony, swinging his longsword in wild, desperate arcs. From his helpless position on the dirty ground, 4 dead monsters are piled around him, but those erratic swings are not going to hit anything anymore. He has completely lost control to the blinding pain, wasting his remaining energy striking empty air. Mia stands panting nearby with her dual blades drawn, desperately trying to break through and protect him before the goblins finish him, but what blocks her path stops her dead. It is a massive hobgoblin. This beast stands a full head taller than its lesser kin, showing off broad shoulders, a thick skeletal frame, and a viciously ugly face. Sharp, jagged fangs jut upward past its lip. The monster stands nearly 2 meters tall and wields a crude, black iron machete. The craftsmanship is rough, but the wide blade is incredibly deadly. It wears a piece of poorly fitted leather armor over its massive chest. Ordinary goblins are small fry, but this brute is a true elite. It leads the small fry, swinging down at Mia with a whistling, air-splitting machete blow. On pure instinct, she crosses her dual blades right in front of her face. The heavy impact slams into her guard, sparking brightly as she gets thrown back. The raw weight of the hit launches her off her feet, making him curse silently. The mission guide promised normal goblins, but outliers exist. Elite monsters can appear in massive nests, like fierce hobgoblins. Shamans or 2-headed beasts sometimes show up. This one lay in wait. Either hid in the back or waited inside until the noise dragged it out. He never noticed its presence. It is not a true hobgoblin, just a half-evolved variant. It is still nowhere near the power level of a genuine, full-fledged hobgoblin. A seasoned professional would probably shrug it off as just another minor pest. But for low-ranking rookies who are not yet actual pros, this is death. It represents an absolute party wipe. This captain also explains their coordination. Having a strong leader on the field keeps the small ones fighting bravely. They refuse to break. Right now, 3 monsters have 3 villagers pinned down. 2 more circle Belle like patient vipers, waiting for his defense to crumble. They want a killing blow. Meanwhile, the elite goblin focuses entirely on Mia. She is the only one left standing, but the massive gap in strength is obvious. The only reason she has not been crushed yet is the beast's dark desire. It wants her alive, which makes this situation 10 times more terrifying. Reading the entire battlefield at once, he struggles to force himself back up. Severe dizziness strikes him instantly, making the surrounding trees spin and tilt. They say you should never stop halfway during an exhausting run, because starting again hurts. Your body charges you double for the pause. What he did was far worse. Now the physical bill has finally arrived. His heavy thighs feel completely packed with lead. This hyperfocus state has a brutal hidden tax he is just realizing. While the mind is heavily overclocked, the physical body simply cannot keep pace. All the combat fatigue and pain delay and strike him all at once. Every single step feels like moving borrowed limbs. He forces a deep, ragged breath. Mia slowly drags herself up from the dirt and spots him standing there, shaking. Seeing his state, the final spark of hope completely drains from her eyes. She is exhausted. Cold has severely strained the muscles in her legs and arms. The cruel goblin captain gives her no breathing room, stepping in to strike again. It slashes in rapid, brutal arcs, rattling the dual swords in her weak grip. He inhales deeply again. They are all balanced on the edge of the same cliff. Only one desperate path remains to avoid complete disaster. He looks up at Haley. She is perched on a branch, completely drained. He points at Belle's pursuers. He shouts up to her, "Make him a window, please," because his eyes can barely stay open, but whatever is behind them must remain sharp. She complies without hesitation. She might not see the point of one more opening, especially against a normal goblin, but his prior insane heroics earned her trust. It bought him a level of blind trust he has yet to fully pay for. She inhales deeply, squaring her shoulders and brushing sweaty hair from her forehead. Her trembling fingers steadily pull a final arrow out of her quiver. She rests the fletching on her bowstring, preparing for her single, final shot. Maybe he bends down to grab the dagger since the short blade he was using is just too heavy for his exhausted arms. The dagger will do. He drags his legs, which feel like heavy wet stone, straight toward Belle, one agonizing step after another. Hobgoblin notices his crooked approach, a flicker of pure confusion crossing its ugly face. It is not completely brainless. It has the mind of a child, but it cannot comprehend what threat a human who can barely stand could possibly pose by limping toward its two subordinates. Writing him off as a non-factor, it turns back to Mia. She's still fighting back, making the monster incredibly annoyed. It bares its sharp teeth and its pupils narrow. He staggers over to Belle, who is pale from massive blood. Loss, his sword still wobbling in the air by pure muscle reflex. The two goblins do not advance. Instead, they turn in unison to look at the bloody figure approaching, covered head to toe in sticky, reeking blood that is already starting to dry and scab over. He ignores his own filthy state by the time he reaches them. The grueling walk has restored just a tiny sliver of strength, which is all the power he has. He lifts his head and locks eyes with them, the two goblins. Sniff. It is only when he gets within arm's reach that they catch the foul stench and recognize the dead blood of their own slaughtered kin. Suddenly, an invisible pressure lifts off him, as if the vengeful spirits of 9 dead monsters are still clinging to his back, warning these last 2 survivors exactly what they were dealing with. Whatever the Nemesis title is doing to his passive aura, it lets him hold these ordinary goblins under the same absolute dominance a cat holds over mouse. Gathering what little strength he has left, he slashes his dagger at the closest beast. But it is not enough. Even with his pressure crushing them, his strike has barely any power left, allowing the goblin to easily stumble back and clear the incoming swing. The other goblin's eyes shift instantly. The fear his sudden arrival had caused shatters the very second his attack misses. Their animal cunning returns. The monsters can see clearly that he is completely finished. But wait, a bowstring snaps somewhere behind him. Black streak rips through the silver moonlight, flying 20 meters before burying itself deep inside the chest of the dodging goblin. It is Haley, forcing her precision skill. One more time, her right arm hangs flushed and completely limp at her side. After the release, she calls out from across the clearing that the rest is on him. That arrow is his only window. Gripping the dagger with both hands, he drives himself forward, ignoring the screaming in his feet. His body's momentum is far more useful than his exhausted arm strength right now. The dagger sinks directly into the open wound, and he keeps pushing forward, shoving the wailing beast back by the blade. For several meters, the creature is hit by something it cannot resist as life force pours out of its body. A mouthful of hot blood sprays all over his chest as the dim light in its eyes fades. Talk about a clutch win, the system writes notifications across his vision. The compendium confirms 10 total monster kills. Then it displays the next stage, reach a total of 50 monster kills. Then it announces a reward obtained. A first circle mage spell, magic missile. Next, the system declares his constitution has increased by 1, notifying him that his current constitution is now 6. Before he can even process the notifications, warm, fresh power floods his body. His exhausted muscles in his arms and legs unknot themselves under what feels like warm rain. His breathing grows deep and steady, his vital organs strengthening at an incredible rate. He can feel it. The shaking in his calves completely stops within seconds. Aside from his old cuts, his body is completely overhauled. A new spell sits in the back of his mind like a chord that was always there, and he just learned the name of it. So that is how the Adventurer's Handbook works. Every cleared stage brings a reward. Good to know. The other goblin, the one that finally found its courage and charged him, swings a club at his face. He rolls his shoulders and slides under it effortlessly. The new constitution point has tightened the gap between his brain and his body. Now, a single ordinary goblin is suddenly. Nothing, his dagger finds its waist, twists, shreds, and comes out. Total kills. 11 up in the tree, Haley's mouth drops. 5 seconds ago, he was a corpse. About to collapse, now he is moving like it is the start of the fight. She cannot work out what changed, but the hope she gave up on lights back. Up in her eyes, if he is back maybe, a massive roar rips across the clearing. The hobgoblin's machete strikes with sudden weight. Mia hears a crisp crack. From her own arm, the sound of bone breaking, and all her strength vanishes. At once, the next heavy chop launches her. She slams into a tree, spraying a mouthful of blood, bounces off the trunk, and falls in a heap on the ground. The hobgoblin licks its lips. The scent of human blood sets its skin. Feverish, it looks across at the broken figure of Mia and steps slowly toward her. 1-2, a whistle behind it. A sharp pain shoots through its back. His dagger just slipped through a gap in the leather armor at its waist, and stuck deep. Pain blooms across its lower abdomen fast. It roars 3 short times. And whips around, eyes swollen red, glaring right at him as he backs a way to put distance between them. He just threw the dagger with no intention of being there when it reaches him. The beast is past thinking now, never pausing to ask why the human who could barely stand is suddenly perfectly fine. It only wants ripping him apart, pulling his intestines out, gouging his heart, and eating his flesh. Until nothing remains, so the agonizing pain racking its body has someone to pay it back. Its muscles bulge across its frame as its skin deepens to a feverish crimson, knotted muscles bunching under thickening hide as its rage ignites a primal layer beneath the hobgoblin form. It has become a bloodlust-soaked beast, larger than it was a breath ago. He, on the other hand, has gone incredibly calm. A whole night of fighting has hammered every part of his mind into one piece in this single moment. Other people call this state flow. He does not have the energy to call it anything. The hobgoblin stomps and the ground answers. Its muscles detonate as it comes at him like a tank, splitting the wind in front of it. On the edge of the clearing, Haley holds her breath. Mia and Belle, both pinned to the dirt, raise their heads enough to watch. Honestly, whether he can pull this off is the question on everyone's mind. He cannot hear them. There is only the monster in front of him, one hand flat across his chest, the wool behind his eyes hardening to the point it almost has a shape. Intelligence 7 is not a few percent over 5. It is potentially 2 or 3 times the ceiling. He has not been tapping it. A few days of cantrip practice was never going to draw the bottom of it to the surface. Until right now, with that terrifying beast charging across the dirt at him. His spirit, pulled tight in his chest, finally cracks the invisible barrier. He connects to that depth as pure spiritual force surges across his brain. His hair rises in a phantom wind, and his first magic missile spell, imprinted on his very soul, awakens at the exact same moment, focusing his key, and with his spirit pushed to the limit, the world simplifies. The hobgoblin is 5 meters away, drool flying from its fangs as it charges. A blue light begins to glow in his palm, faint but expanding quickly, brightening fast and swallowing the dark of the forest with its radiant glow. By the time the orb forms, it is heavy enough that he feels its weight against his wrist, with the beast just 1 second from reaching him. 1 second is an eternity. He throws the orb, which elongates into a beam, lancing through the air, hitting the hobgoblin square in the abdomen. The impact hits with the force of a train, sending the body flying backward. Without resistance, a blue halo expands outward from the wound, tearing through skin, flesh, and bone instantly. The creature looks incredibly fragile. Under that surge of magic, tearing like wet paper over a pot, the blue energy punches completely through, detonating as it strikes the dirt. Behind it, the forest lights up with blue fire and shredded flesh, blooming in the dark like fireworks. When the beam dies, a fist-sized hole sits where the beast's stomach used to be. Its body slams into the soil, with its machete still clenched in hand, dust rolling up off the impact. Dead still, the young mage hasn't moved either, frozen in his throwing stance. His arm still extended. Slowly, his gaze shifts to the last 3 goblins. They were busy fighting the village elders, but the magical blast draws their eyes. They just watched their captain get deleted by a single spell. Realizing this, humans staring them down is the one who did it. Their bodies shake with sheer terror. Sure, regular goblins are stupid, but they know exactly when they are staring death in the face. Without a second thought, they drop their weapons, abandoning their kin's severed limbs on the ground. And bolts, they throw off their armor as they run. In the end, They are just weak cowards. It is over. He surveys the silent clearing. Breathing a sigh of relief, he won't bother chasing the runaway goblins. Without their nest, they will die fast in the wild unless they find another pack, which is highly unlikely tonight. Besides, his mana is totally gone. Mage Hand is cheap, costing him almost nothing, and even with his stamina overdrawn earlier, he still had a decent pool left for Magic Missile. But that first circle spell drank every last drop in a single cast. Running on empty is incredibly painful. His head throbs and his spirit, overextended from winding up that massive strike, leaves him completely paralyzed. He remains standing only because he literally has no energy left to move. Striking a cool pose was not the plan. Luckily, his lingering magic aura scared those runners off, because in the absolute state they are all in, 3 more enemies would have spelled disaster. Just then, one of the village elders calls out, asking the young adventurer if he is okay. The 3 surviving village men have some wounds, but they are still standing. They scramble to their feet. Ordinary goblins have no real advantage over a healthy human in a fair clash, but tonight is not fair, and the pitch-black dark gives them every advantage though. Seeing him locked in place and staring at the trees, they slowly creep closer. The villagers are starting to realize that this shabby, unremarkable young man standing at the back of the party is their actual leader, and that the devastating spell that obliterated the goblin leader will be the absolute main story when the village gossips tonight. He reassures the crowd that the battle is over and orders them to search the cave for the women, begging them to quickly send a runner back to the village for backup. His injured companions desperately need medical attention along with all their rescued friends. He looks back at his shattered party with deep dread. This quest is tragic. Belle has a broken leg and there is no telling if it will ever heal properly. Having watched him release that magic, Belle's nerves finally shattered and he collapsed right on the dirt. Mia's internal injuries are far worse. She lies on the ground, completely unable to move, spitting up mouthfuls of dark blood and ruined flesh. Both of these brave fighters are in serious danger, despite winning the bloody fight. Haley and he are in much better condition, though neither of them can walk very far. The village elder who took the first blow has not stirred in a very long time, and he knows the man is gone. Soon, flickering torches return from the settlement. A rooster crows right on cue over White Birch Village, signaling a grim morning. Following a chaotic night, the town is shrouded in a quiet, exhausted sorrow. The only relief is that Jenny and Aisha were dragged out of that terrifying cave completely alive, shaken, battered and covered in filth from head to toe, but breathing. The young maid has enough decency not to ask any painful details about their ordeal inside that dark cavern. Unfortunately, the terrible news is that one local man did not make it back. He was Aisha's beloved brother. At first, the anxious crowd waiting in the town square felt deep, bitterness when they learned of his death, especially since he was one of their own, and an elite vanguard had been hired specifically to prevent that tragic outcome. Tragedy, but that anger completely vanishes once they journey out to the cave. The ground at the entrance is stained a deep crimson. The sickening reek of blood and split guts hangs heavy over the forest clearing. Severed green limbs, claws, and mangled torsos lie scattered in the dirt. Other unspeakable remains are strewn everywhere, painting a truly gruesome picture of slaughter. Several villagers with weak stomachs collapse and begin to retch. Seeing Belle and Mia's horrific injuries, combined with the survivors' accounts of the massive clash, silences any remaining complaints from the locals. The party has suddenly become the ultimate heroes of White Birch Village in a single morning. These 4 weary adventurers are quickly housed in the finest stone building in the settlement, without a proper doctor around. An apprentice herbalist watches over Belle and Mia, offering only basic bandages and prayers. The only saving grace keeping the wounded pair from slipping away is a mysterious red pill that Haley retrieved from her own pouch. This medicine, she explained, temporarily awakens the patient's inner life force to stabilize a critical wound. The dangerous catch is that it cannot be administered twice in a short span without causing lethal damage. Belle and Mia are barely stable but far from safe. They desperately need professional treatment. As dawn breaks and the thick mist clears, he stands at the road sign near the village border, seeing Haley off inside the settlement's soul wooden cart. Belle and Mia lie on soft padding, shivering as a fever. She places cool cloths on their foreheads, completely ruling out a return to Greyrock town. While Greyrock is quite large for the frontier, its medical services are Nothing next to a real city, and Barry, their forest home, is much closer. In Barry, they will get proper treatment. Suddenly, the driver up front shouts that it is finally time to leave, so Gauss politely asks Haley if she needs him to tag along. She insists he should not worry since the main road to Barry is highly traveled and perfectly safe, yet her tired face is completely drained of the cheerfulness she had 2 days ago, forcing a small smile onto her lips. She reminds Gauss that he still has a quest to submit, leaving the remainder of the reward entirely in his hands. Then she pauses, looking at him with that lingering look of wanting to ask a question, but deciding to save it for later. Her opinion of him has completely shifted. At first, she had pinned Gauss as some poor, low-tier rookie she didn't even want around, but after their brief time training together, she revised that to a provisional novice who just got lucky learning one specific spell without any family backing. Now, after his display last night, she is totally speechless. She might be relatively green, but she knows he does not fit into any of her usual boxes. She cordially invites him to visit her in Barry at the Golden Beak Merchant Guild on the west side, promising a proper welcome. Alongside Belle and Mia, Gauss politely replies that he will if he can. Though truth be told, his immediate plans involve staying around Greyrock Town for a while, which she does not need to know. She says her goodbyes, predicting that they will meet again when he is already quite a formidable figure. With a wave, the cart rolls away. He watches her chestnut hair vanish down the dusty road, and just like that, their short-lived team completely dissolves. Whether they will ever meet again is a total mystery. This medieval world lacks modern luxuries like phones or the internet. Friendships here among low-tier adventurers are fragile, and goodbyes are usually final. The morning breeze brushes his hair as he turns back toward the village. Admittedly, he had no deep bond with the trio. Still, they seemed like good people to know, given enough time, which they simply lacked. Feeling a slight twinge of quiet regret, Gauss decides to stay in the village another day, a choice the locals welcome joyfully. Ordinary folks in this land hold a deep, unspoken reverence for spellcasters. The physical feats of warriors are plain to see, but the silent flow of magic is completely invisible. After all, people always fear what they cannot see. Spellcraft seem incredibly mysterious and awesome to outsiders. However, Gauss did not stay to soak in the adoration. He merely needed time to fully recover and to clean up the battlefield. To submit his quest, he needs goblin left ears. The village chief stamp on his paperwork and any leftover weapons. Moving out, he heads back alone to the clearing right in front of the cave. The blood has dried, and after overnight rotting, the stench is easily 10 times worse than before, steeling his stomach against the smell. He searches the area for anything of value. Stone and crude wooden weapons are not worth his time, but iron is always worth grabbing, even damaged. He manages to salvage 2 short knives, 4 daggers, and a long machete. A savage hobgoblin had been swinging a massive, heavy machete. Its ruined leather armor is too shredded to sell, which is a real pity. It would have paid well. Around its neck hangs a rough green stone. The peanut-sized gem pulses with a faint light, dangling from a cord. He squeezes it. Instantly, a warm and comfortable current flows into his hand. He has no clue what it is, but anyone can recognize pure treasure. The leader's giant size was probably boosted by this magical gem. He stuffs the loot away, lights a torch, and heads inside the cave. Pitch black inside, slimy green moss completely covers the walls of the cavern. The entire place reeks heavily of rotting waste and old sewer water. Clearly, these green-skinned monsters never bother to clean up their home. A fat rat scurries over his boot. The toxic air is absolutely filthy. Without the promise of rich loot, he would have left immediately. He avoids a nasty puddle and pushes deep into the dark tunnel. Finally, he reaches the massive, wide-open chamber at the very back. Piles of bones are stacked high, covered in swarming flies and rats. Gross maggots wiggle through the remains. A stone pot sits over cold ash. Inside is a thick, muddy sludge that he decides to ignore. The goblins had been throwing a massive dinner party the night before. It was likely a celebration for capturing 2 helpless village women. That party became their funeral. On the wall hangs a weird trophy. It is another goblin corpse, slightly larger than a normal runt. But it is tiny compared to the hobgoblin, dead for days. He inspects the body, trying to remember his guild reference guide. Goblins are cruel, but they do not eat their own kind. especially not under a strong leader. Turf wars, however, are common. He pieces it together step by step, analyzing the clues around the room. Suddenly, he slaps his forehead. The obvious answer finally hits him. The guild's information was totally wrong. This hobgoblin was an outsider. He arrived, slaughtered the old chief, and claimed the small pack. The tribe swelled from 8 monsters to over 20 in an instant. That explains why the small raids suddenly became a massive crisis overnight. A hungry new force had arrived, and their chief wanted blood. He grits his teeth, letting out a frustrated sigh at the situation. Absolute terrible luck. Without that giant monster, 8 goblins were nothing. His chosen team could have easily handled a minor threat like that. The knight would have won. He just hopes Belle and Mia survive. He shakes his head, realizing this disaster is not the guild's fault. But a harsh lesson remains: never blindly trust other people's information. From now on, he will verify every single detail on his own. He makes his decision and heads back to the village with a heavy pack. The bag is stuffed with loot, though he still cannot guess the price. After resting overnight, he takes the road straight back toward Greyrock Town. He plans to sell everything for hard cash to get proper gear. Because as a practicing mage, he does not even own a real wand. It is honestly pretty embarrassing. Still, he wants to see how the professionals differ from awakened apprentices and how a normal person actually crosses that massive gap. Greyrock Town, the familiar gray stone walls stir up something inside him without his permission. Maybe that is the whole point of a town. After spending enough nights in the harsh wilderness fighting the constant wind, heavy weather, and endless mountain ridges, he finally walks through a gate that has sheltered and fed him before. The sudden rush of relief inside is hard to put into words. He shoulders his heavy packs and passes the guards, falling right into the flow of traffic on the busy street. He catches a couple of curious looks from local kids along the road, feeling like a whole lifetime has passed since he left. Funny enough, somewhere along the way, he became one of those dangerous individuals the original kid's memories warned him to never provoke. He just shakes his head and laughs quietly to himself. What kind of fighter let a pack of goblins in? One muscular goblin push him to the absolute brink of death. He is still incredibly far from strong. First, he needs to turn in this quest. He is dirty, exhausted, and smells pretty bad, so a hot bath sounds amazing, but his personal rule is to always finish the job before relaxing. Otherwise, that unfinished business just lingers at the back his mind until his rest feels like no rest at all. He walks down the central avenue toward the main square. The Adventurers Guild banner is still flying proudly, the sword and shield. Inside, the hall is much busier than his last visit. Queues have formed at every single counter, so he picks the shortest line and waits. After a bit, he finally reaches the front, and the receptionist is Petra by total coincidence. She greets him professionally as receptionist Petra, employee number E21051. Recognizing him, he hands over the official commission form, the heavy bag of proof, and his adventurer badge, and tells her he is here to claim his reward. She politely thanks him for the hard work on the mission, opens up the bag, and checks the ear count. After a short pause, she mentions that the total count looks a bit high. He explains that their intel was completely wrong, and the team ran into a full 20 goblins instead of just 7 or 8. And the village chief wrote a detailed explanation directly on the official document. Petra's expression shifts instantly. She apologizes deeply, admitting that this is a major oversight on the guild's part, and that the massive risk they carried because of it is entirely their responsibility. She even bows formally at the counter and says she will report the mistake to the management department immediately, and promises that someone will follow up to verify everything. According to guild policy, she adds, the reward for this quest will be doubled as compensation. He simply nods. With the extra pay, it is a decent enough resolution. Realistically, the Adventurers Guild is a massive, multi-kingdom organization. They do not openly abuse their power, but a low-ranking rookie like him has absolutely no leverage against them. Especially in a small branch, if a huge mistake gets a weak adventurer killed, what actually happens? A fresh rookie simply replaces them the next morning. They are like roadside weeds, easily replaced. Only true professionals get to control their own destiny. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices elite warriors laughing together as they head up to the exclusive second floor. The stern guards quickly salute them with deep respect. Down on the main floor, the common crowd shuffles along. The Stark division is visible everywhere. Petra She tells him the reward for the job is 9 silver coins, and with compensation, the total comes to 18 silver coins, warning him to keep them safe. She takes a coin bag from under the counter and sets it on the table. She does something else under the table and slides his adventurer's badge back across. To him, he takes the money pouch and the badge. A significant share of the 18 silver coins belongs to Haley and the other 2, and he is not touching their share. They probably do not need it, but rules are rules. His share is 4 silver coins and 50 copper coins, including his prior balance. His total cash is 5 silver coins and 12 copper coins. The other spoils he is keeping outright since he did the heavy work in the fight and is just starting out his adventure career. Plus, Haley had already agreed before the job. Petra tells him the quest information has been registered to his adventurer's badge. He asks what this registration is actually for. She explains it tracks his access tier, that completing 10 normal level quests opens permission to accept beginner level missions, and that 3 completed beginner level commissions qualify him for a bronze level application. Bronze level adventurers get more guild benefits and extra purchasing power. She warns him, though, that beginner level jobs usually involve enemies only professional fighters can handle, and even with the experience of 10 normal jobs under his belt, she would not recommend taking one until he is genuinely ready. He asks what level he is at currently. She tells him he is unranked. Above bronze there is iron, silver, and gold level. At the very top are the platinum title adventurers. She tells him these platinum warriors are so powerful that only 5 have ever been born in their entire kingdom of Karl, and they sit at the pinnacle of billions of adventurers, absolute powerhouses standing above all rankings. He nods. The adventurer ranking system is straightforward enough to memorize, but wait, look at that crazy platinum count. Just 5 in a whole kingdom, meaning even fewer are alive at this moment. He tries one more question, asking Petra how a normal person becomes a professional. She tells him she apologizes, but she cannot answer that since she is just an ordinary receptionist at the guild. Under his questioning gaze, she shakes her head with a helpless smile and confirms she is not the right person. He thanks her and steps away from the counter. The spiky-haired older man in the next slot was about to start shoving him out of the way anyway. He walks toward the doors with Petra's answer still heavy on his mind. He does not believe she is truly clueless. She works at the Adventurers Guild front desk every single day. She has to know things, whether she wants to or not. She either did not want to tell him, or the rules forbid discussing it openly, or she decided the massive line behind them was not the place for that conversation. He is not annoyed about it, though. It was just a casual try, and he has other places to look. Stepping out of the guild and across the square, a blackened stone building sits in the corner with a sign reading Black Anvil Workshop. The air around this place is several degrees warmer. Before he even gets close, it is not the most flashy shop in the plaza, but it is the absolute best blacksmith in Grey Rock Town. The other workshops are far below. He knows that firsthand because he worked here for a stretch as an odd-job helper. When Gauss first arrived in town, he noticed some seriously dangerous-looking adventurers. They occasionally came in to buy gear from the Black Anvil Workshop, but most of their customers are just low-level adventurers. Alongside high-end armor, they sell plenty of cheap gear made by apprentices. They also resell used gear. This budget-friendly stuff isn't flashy at all, but it gets the job done for your average, run-of-the-mill adventurer. When Gauss was gearing up a few days ago, he thought about coming here. Then he checked his thin wallet and went somewhere cheaper. Today, he's got cash. With some decent coins in hand, Gauss steps inside. The shop has 2 sections. Standard gear lines the front storefront, while the noisy forging yard clangs in back. A young male apprentice with a freckled, plain face steps up to greet him. Gauss actually remembers this guy. They used to exchange polite nods back then. He decides to greet the apprentice first by name, saying, "Marin, long time no see." Marin looks up, scanning him from head to toe with narrowed, curious eyes. Once he spots Gauss's emerald green eyes, he blurts out some excited, half-remembered sounds. He clearly recognizes the face, but the name escapes him entirely. Seeing his embarrassment, Gauss quickly steps in and tells him his name is Gauss. He adds that he still remembers Marin's name, too. Marin laughs and claps his shoulder. He chuckles, saying it's tough keeping track of so many faces every single day. Then he asks about Gauss's outfit, wondering if he gave up the hunter life. Marin has seen enough travelers to spot that dusty, road-weary look from a mile away. Gauss admits it, explaining he registered as an official adventurer not too long ago. Marin's face immediately falls. He sighs, admitting how incredibly jealous he is of Gauss. His family simply won't let him do it. Gauss instantly remembers their old conversations. Marin used to complain about his strict parents all the time back then. Unlike Gauss, the drifting outsider, Marin is a local whose parents paid for his apprenticeship. They bought him a spot at the workshop so he could become a proper blacksmith. In this dangerous world, having a trade like blacksmithing means total job security. To most folks, it is a far safer and more respectable path. It is certainly better than risking your neck daily as a low-rank adventurer. But Marin sees things differently. He's incredibly restless, yearning for something far grander. He dreams of swords, magic, and golden wheat fields stretching under the warm sun. He wants to fight monsters, complete quests, and laugh with trusted companions. He pictures feasting in cozy village taverns and safe caves. That's his grand vision. That picture isn't entirely wrong, but it is deeply incomplete. Here's what he misses. He forgets that most adventurers aren't the polished, wealthy heroes he usually sees. They aren't the fancy elites who casually head up to the shop's second floor. The reality involves bloody, desperate battles in pitch-black ruins and sleeping in the mud. It means enduring bugs every single night, sudden mortal danger, and crushing loneliness. Heavy isolation creeps in when you are entirely alone in the wild. Just a 2-day trek from White Birch Village was enough to teach Gauss that. Imagine a week of it, a month, or half a year. The quiet pressure only grows heavier. This is probably why most adventurers work in teams. They need to share that weight. Carrying that invisible, dark burden all by yourself is simply too much for most. Gauss doesn't feel like lecturing him today. He keeps these dark thoughts to himself. Jailong flashes a knowing smile, telling Marin he probably won't like the adventurer life. Marin bristles, accusing Jailong of looking down on him again, saying that if even Jailong can do it, so can he. He has been saving money for a set of equipment to register at the guild. Knowing nothing of this, Jailong decides to steer the conversation toward business, asking Marin to check the value of some goblin spoils. He drops the heavy loot bag onto the stone table with a loud clatter. Marin opens the bag, peers inside, and instantly gasps at the massive pile. He stammers that he cannot appraise so much gear, demanding to know where Jailong scavenged it. Then he runs to fetch the shopkeeper. Jailong guesses the boss must be a giant. He is over 1.9 meters tall and built like a fortress, carrying a massive forging hammer in one hand. A dark leather apron wraps around his waist, failing to conceal the heavy, corded muscle of his chest and abdomen. Short black hair, an expressionless face, and a dark eye patch covers his left eye, while his bare right eye shines as bright as a copper bell. He looks more like a seasoned warrior than a local blacksmith, which is what most townspeople quietly assume about him, though no one has ever truly proven it. But everyone knows his elite forging skills are the real deal. Local adventurers trust him completely. Glown recognizes Jailong immediately, showing the gentle nature beneath his rough exterior. When Jailong first arrived in town, searching for any kind of temporary work, it was Glown who took him in despite Jailong having absolutely no blacksmithing experience. Jailong did not stay at the forge long before moving on, but his deep gratitude remains, so he warmly greets his former boss, shopkeeper Glown. Glances at the equipment on the table, noting Marin told him Jailong came to sell spoils. Jailong confirms they were taken from a goblin pack. Glown raises an eyebrow and sighs, admitting he never expected that Jailong would go and become an adventurer, speaking in a tone that clearly shows he disapproves of this career. He has seen far too many rookie adventurers go out and never return. The world, he warns, is only getting harsher. He shifts through the gear on the table while talking, explaining that in desperate times, more people pick up adventure work. In peaceful eras, there are more scholars, craftsmen, and administrative clerks. When he was young, adventurers were extremely rare, but now in Greystone Town, they make up nearly 40% of the population, even for a trade hub. That number is incredibly high, still, because Jailong used to work here. Glown offers to pay 10% over the going rate. The old smith goes through the items one by one. The machete is average metal, but well quenched. He offers 25 silver coins, adding it would be worth more if properly maintained. One short sword is too heavily damaged to resell, meaning it can only go For scrap iron at a low price, he works through the pile and gives him a total of 36 silver coins. Jailong thinks it over and nods, knowing roughly what second-hand gear sells for in town. Once you factor in the cost to process and resell everything, this is a fair deal. Jailong had no plans to keep the machete anyway. Jailong's strength is only average, and those heavy swings tired him out, so it does not suit him. He pulls a mysterious green stone from his pocket and asks shopkeeper Glown if he knows what it is. Glown's eyebrow lifts. He pauses. Then a flicker of genuine shock crosses his face, showing Jailong he came to the right place. Glown starts to Glan explains that the green gem is actually a valuable life magic stone. He admits he is just a blacksmith and no gem expert, but on the open market could probably sell for over 2 gold coins, 2 whole gold coins. Marin, who was hovering nearby and pretending not to listen, looks like he cannot believe his own ears. He is stunned, and honestly, who wouldn't be? 2 gold coins is 200 silver or 20,000 copper coins. For regular folks, that is a small fortune, his own money. Houch currently holds a measly 5 silver coins and 12 copper coins. The dream the original kid had of buying a small house in Greyrock Town would be fully paid off, with plenty of cash left over for nice furniture. To put it in perspective, an ordinary low-level laborer who is lucky enough to find work earns 10 copper coins for a full day of exhausting work. Even a single man struggles to save 5 copper coins a day without even accounting for clothes or medical needs. With steady work and an entire month of hard labor, the total savings would only be around 150 copper coins. 2 gold coins is 11 years of labor without a day of rest. In reality, a laborer never saves even 1 gold coin in their lifetime. If we look at gear, basic leather armor is 15 silver coins, meaning 2 gold buys 13 full sets. Medium scale mail is 60 silver coins, so 2 gold coins buys only 3 sets. Heavy armor, however, is completely out of reach. A set of full plate armor costs 15 gold coins, which is basically the price of 15 houses in town. That is not an exaggeration. Full plate is a genuine heirloom, the ultimate hard currency of this fantasy world. Real estate loses value during war. Fine armor, it never does, it only appreciates. It is exactly because Marin understands the value of 2 gold coins that he pulled that face in front of his master. He looks at him with envy bleeding into pure jealousy. Our guy does his best to feign calm. He guessed it was a treasure, just not this valuable. Seeing the look in Marin's eyes, he cannot help but feel a tiny, private spark of satisfaction. In the original kid's memories, Marin was never actually bad to him, being friendlier than the other apprentices and happy to chat during slow hours. Yet there was always a slight undertone of condescension in his words, similar to how a city person might talk down to a country bumpkin just to feel better about their own status. Marin was not a bad guy, and his condescension was completely unconscious. But now, things have completely flipped. Our protagonist presses his lips together to keep a straight face. It seems even this fantasy world has a version of that classic saying about siblings, the one that goes, fear your brother lives in misery, but fear even more that he buys a fancy carriage. Glan tells him to go to Widow's Alley if he wants to exchange the stone. There is a stone house there with a sign that reads Thorncheck. The owner buys all kinds of magical items. He adds that if our guy knows any wealthy customers, he can trade with them directly instead. Glan shrugs. 2 gold coins might be a fortune to ordinary people, but it is nothing to a master blacksmith. His earlier shock was not about the gem itself, but rather that a raw, low-level adventurer like him had something so rare. The pile of second-hand weapons was already well beyond his expectations. Our guy thanks him sincerely. Glan is the most knowledgeable person he currently knows in this town, with 0 other connections. He gathers his courage to ask for just one more favor, apologizing for asking so many questions, and wonders. Young man asks about becoming a professional mage. Glan's sharp gaze immediately locks onto him. That simple question alone tells the old blacksmith everything he needs to know. Commoners never specify the mage profession without having actual, proven talent, meaning awakened magic and a mastered spell. Glan's eyes settle as he thinks. Now all that monster loot makes perfect sense if he is already training as a professional. Classes make the massive hall seem far less surprising. Glan glances at Marin. They notice Marin trying to eavesdrop on them. The manager quietly tells him to follow. Glan heads inside. Marin grumbles loudly about the unfair treatment. The young man glances back at his indignant face and chuckles quietly. Several hot furnaces and busy apprentices hum inside the snowy courtyard. The sharp, relentless ringing of hammer on anvil quickly brings on a headache. Glan leads him past the noise, pushing open a small wooden door. Despite working here a while, the young man has never been in this room. He looks around the private quarters, his eyes instantly locking onto a set of full-plate armor. It stands on a rack near the bed, looking heavy and incredibly complex. Dozens of pieces are linked masterfully by hinges, straps, and rivets. The silver-white steel features custom cheek guards and a raised breastplate. It curves like an inverted ship's hull, with a sharp ridge running down the center. The cold, metallic surface shines like a frozen wave or a dorsal fin. Its shoulder plates look like dragon scales, complete with gauntlets and steel boots. If ordinary full plate costs 15 houses, this is something else entirely. There is no cheap gold, no silver inlay, and no fancy engraving on it. It has only the raw, violent practicality of a true masterwork. Comparing it to the cheap gear outside, this armor must be worth 50 houses. And honestly, the longer he stares at it, the more certain he becomes. He turns to the store manager, silently asking if he is actually a master. Glan clears his throat defensively, telling him to stop looking at him like that. He quickly recovers with a smile, claiming to be just a retired, ordinary blacksmith now. Besides, any decent blacksmith would know a thing or two about professional classes. The young man nods quickly, deciding it is best not to push the matter. Glan shuts the door, pulls out a stool, and gestures for him to sit. He starts with the absolute basics, explaining that there are many races in this world. The most common races in this world are gnomes, dwarves, and halflings. Physically, they are not all that different from ordinary humans. But then there are also the highly unique and powerful races. These include the dragonborn, elves, orcs, banshees, and even legendary dragons. Such bloodlines carry massive natural powers far beyond any human capabilities. Others must train to unlock extraordinary powers, becoming professionals. Countless professional paths have been explored over the generations. Most have vanished into history, waiting to be uncovered once more. Very few paths have survived the ages, leaving only the primary options today. Warrior, warlock, mage, ranger, druid, and rogue are the core mainstream paths. These classic paths offer the absolute highest power ceilings for any race. But crossing from an ordinary person to a professional is incredibly brutal. Out of 10 adventurers with decent talent, maybe only one succeeds. Maybe only one will cross that line, or even fewer. The mentor figures the boy has already unlocked some basic professional skills, like swordsmanship, combat techniques, and magic. He pours some water for them both and watches him closely over the rim of the cup. The boy nods. There is no point in hiding his abilities. The man is teaching him for free, and secrets are rude. So he admits he has already mastered the mage hand cantrip and a first circle. Spell magic missile. The mentor chokes on his drink, coughing into his hand, trying to get himself under control. His face turns incredibly complicated. Who can blame him? He says the boy's talent is far beyond what he imagined, asking if those spells awoke. Suddenly, right after his magic awakened, the kid nods, though it was actually a reward. From the adventurer's handbook, it definitely felt sudden. The mentor looks like he has confirmed a theory. He says the boy's luck and natural talent are quite remarkable, and that maybe he does not truly understand where his magic comes from. He does. But he decides not to interrupt. The mentor explains that some view this flash of insight as a divine gift, others disagree. They think the world is full of latent techniques and magical legacies just waiting to be uncovered. Most never find one. In their entire lives, occasionally, a lucky soul stumbles upon a legacy and the power falls right into their hands, pure luck, otherwise anyone wanting skills like high-level techniques or spells must learn from books or a seasoned professional. It takes forever. Only after endless practice do they stand a chance at mastering them. Clearly, the boy got his spells through sudden enlightenment rather than formal study, since the poor kid had none of the expensive resources schooling demands. The boy asks, so, does mastering a combat move or spell instantly make someone a professional? The mentor shakes his head, not even close. That is merely the very first step, the absolute minimum threshold. People at this stage are only considered professional apprentices. To become a true professional, he explains, that chosen skill must be honed to a level of absolute extreme proficiency. There is no easy way to measure that threshold. It comes down to personal feeling. Once the skill reaches that peak level, the practitioner begins to feel a strange, guiding force in the surrounding world. This call is known as the professional path. This path will condense an invisible core inside the body, which is called the job rank. This rank is the ultimate source of their power, though to this day, nobody can define it with absolute precision. The common theory says it is a product of the world's rules. And by walking this path and constantly working at it, day after day, the practitioner grows stronger. The boy listens. He is completely fascinated by only half understanding, but feels a quiet joy. His adventurer handbook can actually quantify his skills, an absolute unmatched advantage. He asks so. What he needs is to train a single spell to extreme proficiency, and then he can receive the guidance to walk the mage's path. The mentor sighs, that is the simple version. But the actual reality is far more complex. Training a skill to that guiding stage takes an incredibly long time, and most people cannot finish it in a single lifetime. At that point, the practitioner usually requires the guidance of an incredibly famous master. Even after reaching that stage, there are still massive difficulties ahead. The professional path will suddenly transform the pre-professional's body. Some simply cannot adapt, and they may need potions, reagents, transfer rituals, or treasures to help. Promotion methods vary by profession and by person until that job rank is condensed and they are officially recognized as a real Tier 1 professional. This entire process, under normal circumstances, always takes anywhere from 1 or 2 years to decades. He patiently sits, absorbing as much knowledge as his memory can possibly hold before standing up to bow deeply. Nobody is kind for nothing, even with Glan's good temperament. Deep professional knowledge is absolutely not something normally handed out to outsiders completely free, because professionals need resources to advance, and those very resources are limited. Every single new professional in the territory is just another competitor for the exact same resource pool. Glan likely did this because he thinks well of him, to invest in a relationship for the future, or perhaps because the brief time he himself worked at his shop earned him this accommodation. Either way, he shared secrets, including the extremely important fact that a mage benefits significantly from utilizing a custom magic wand, not just in combat. In daily practice, that wand accelerates the actual effect of every cast, and that life magic stone he added is indeed a key material used to craft wands. Near the end, he seemed to feel he had said way too much, and he quickly covered the slip by claiming he had actually heard all of it from a friend. He lets it stand. Both knew the trade. Neither was going to say so. He says he is leaving now, and Glan warmly waves him off, telling him to return sometime, and watches him go. Behind him, the old blacksmith's gaze is unfocused, looking like he is watching a youth from decades ago, walking out of another shop, ambitious and completely on fire, just like he himself once was. Extraordinary adventurers are extraordinary by nature. They crave the kind of life ordinary people would never even dare to tread. Marin catches him on the way out, announcing his decision to become a legendary adventurer like Gauss, since he absolutely no longer wants to be a humble blacksmith. He warns Marin that he might say something to hurt his feelings, but he honestly thinks being a simple blacksmith suits him much better now. Out of the anvil workshop he goes with a lighter pack, heavier purse, and short knives successfully turned into 31 silver coins and 12 copper coins. By the time the math settled, he should have had 41, but impulse buys get us all. See, a gorgeous rapier on the wall caught his eye, and his dagger had taken a beating in the white birch fight, leaving it nearly useless, and the nagging principle in his head saying he might as well completely won out over his own better instincts. He bought it for 10 silver coins, full price. 10 silver coins is a real bite for him, but it is cheap for a long weapon. A rapier eats less iron, so the base price runs lower, and the shopkeeper threw in a friendly discount on top. He held the blade up on his way to the inn, looking it over, loving it more with each pass. The blade itself was quite straight and slim, measuring about a meter long, with a raised spine down the surface catching that silver gray gleam of the metal and a sharp triangular point glinting cold at the very tip. The grip was wrapped in plain leather, the crossguard simple. It carried that raw, clean beauty of a tool with zero wasted decoration. He held the sword level, seeing his own blue eyes mirrored on the flat steel. He looked a bit smug, but he had carefully planned this purchase first. A broadsword is versatile against mixed groups of enemies. It is better against armor, and a heavy greatsword easily cracks chainmail. But broadswords are heavy, and his strength stat is only 5. That compares poorly to his constitution of 6, meaning a heavy weapon would tire him. He would be exhausted by the third swing, and his next enemies are pack monsters. These are low-tier monsters that nest in packs and love fighting in tight, cramped ground. A wide blade has no room there, but a rapier is incredibly fast. It slashes and thrusts smoothly, fitting into tight corners, though it fails against armor. It will snap if abused and does nothing against armor, but standard goblins rarely wear any. Hardly any of those low-level monsters wear armor. What he actually needs is a technique. He needs a proper sword style soon, since goblins know nothing of weapon technique. Simply swinging a blade is enough to beat them, but he cannot just fight weak goblins forever. And honestly, things get much worse than basic hobgoblins out there. Far worse things exist, making people wonder why a future mage is training with swords. He refuses to let close-range enemies view him as an easy target. He has no intention of letting some close-range enemy treat him like a soft target. Real combat is unpredictable if an enemy slips inside his casting distance and assumes a mage cannot fight back. He wants them to learn a painful lesson. They will learn on the sharp edge of his sword. His commission was officially closed. He gave himself a few days off, though his mind remained focused on drilling magic missile. Relaxing came first. He emerged from the steaming bathhouse feeling incredibly refreshed. His eyes were half closed, a happy hum in his chest as the deep muscle tension, built up over the past week, melted away completely under the hot, running water. He felt all the dust of the road wash off him. The bath cost him 5 copper coins. That is small change, and with more coins, he felt comfortable spending. What is the point of earning if you cannot enjoy life instead of hoarding copper? He absolutely refused to live like a cheap peasant, then changed into his fresh daily linen. He noticed the shirt was riding too short around his waist. It used to fit. He wondered if his rising constitution stat caused this growth, and he was absolutely thrilled. He stood just over 1.7 meters, quite short compared to local adventurers. A surprise growth spurt at his age would be an incredible, unexpected bonus. With his stomach growling again, he headed straight to the upscale Coral Tavern down the road. It was a clear step up from the Nightingale, where Haley had taken them. They had dinner there the very night before they departed, but walking inside completely alone. He deeply felt their absence. By now, Haley and the rest should have reached Barry. Belle and Mia were likely well on their way to a full recovery. The tavern was far more carefully decorated than he remembered, glowing with warm yellow lamplight. The light danced on red brick walls as a well-dressed bartender poured drinks near the oak casks stacked high behind him like a wall, releasing the rich scent of aged malt ale. Heavy iron chain candle lamps hung from the high ceiling. They lit up elm tables packed with rowdy, heavily armed adventurers. Even at this late hour, the crowd made perfect sense since adventurers never keep normal daytime hours. They drink straight through the night, sometimes grabbing a heavy mug even at noon. Most carry intense mental pressure after surviving a tough week on the road. They need strong wine to bleed it off, shouting and gesturing wildly in small groups. Busy waitresses weave between the packed tables, guiding excited young adventurers around. Older veterans drape arms over shoulders, eating messy food with bare hands. They spill more alcohol than they actually swallow. Suddenly, the rich aroma of food hits him. His hungry stomach rumbles. He hates alcohol, but he absolutely loves good food. After days of bland camp rations and dry travel meals, he could eat a whole cow. He finds an open table, sets down his heavy pack and sword, and grabs a menu. Waving the waitress off, he quickly orders several rich meat dishes and some fruit juice. An incredibly specific, intense craving for meat has lingered since his fight with the birch. He guesses this hunger is fueled by the same inner engine driving his sudden growth. A constitution of 6 demands heavy protein. This body has growing to do. While waiting for his order, he summons the virtual adventurer handbook inside his mind. Examining the status panel closely, his raw strength currently sits at a solid 5. His agility is 5, and his constitution is a strong 6. That fuels his high stamina, while his intelligence is a highly impressive 7. Perception is 5 for sharp senses, and his natural, sharp intuition. Charm is 5. Looking under his skills, his 0-level cantrip appears. The spell Mage Hand is level 2, with proficiency at 15 out of 20. Meanwhile, his first circle magic missile is level 1, sitting at 3 out of 10. Interestingly, Mage Hand jumped 5 full points during his battle with the White Birch. It rose to 15. All of this was earned directly through brutal live combat. This proves that real combat builds proficiency much faster than boring drills. Magic Missile gained 3 points from one single, extraordinary cast. That was against the Hobgoblin, but on the road back, he never dared use it. The mana cost on a first circle spell is incredibly brutal to manage. He did not want to drain his pool completely on a dark, dangerous forest road. Having only a chipped dagger for protection is terrifying. Currently, he only has 2 spells. Remembering Glon's advice about professional ranks, he now stands at a massive crossroads. The very first step on the path of magic is to grind a single spell. He must grind until the world itself guides him. He has to choose between them. Which one will it be? In terms of difficulty, Mage Hand is definitely easier. Glon said most mages pick a 0-level cantrip as their foundation. A cantrip is easier to access, much simpler to cast, and incredibly light on mana. He can run far more repetitions every single day, boosting his chances of success. This increases the odds of crossing the line. After all, magic is heavily gatekept. Without talent, people burn out long before reaching a professional class rank. Because of this extreme rarity, mages get far more team slots in adventuring parties. Scarcity is its own currency. However, choosing the harder first circle spell has advantages. This hardens into a permanent core skill the moment his class rank condenses. Sure, mages can learn other spells later, climbing higher circles with talent and time. But that core skill will constantly grow alongside his rank, saving him immense power. It costs less mana, casts smoother, and shapes his natural, awakened talent. For example, an archer taking the ranger class might awaken special tracking skills. Precision, Eagle Eye, or Divine Power, a mage pushing a pure attack spell into. Their foundation tends to awaken something heavy, between 0-level Mage Hand and First Circle Magic Missile. The best choice is definitely Magic Missile, Mage Hand. It's just a utility cantrip, carrying absolutely no real combat weight. Magic Missile is the exact opposite, a pure offensive spell with destructive power that ranks at the very top of the first circle, if he pushes Magic Missile into his foundation, the spell he casts on the day he advances classes will be far above any normal mages. The talent he receives will likely be incredibly powerful. He swallowed hard and chose Magic Missile. After all, the core skill defines a mage's entire career. Harder spells take longer to grind, but he has the Adventurer's Handbook for a clean read on proficiency, a luxury other mage hopefuls can only dream of. As long as he keeps practicing, his progress will never drop. Now, the priority is getting a magic wand. Even a cheap one reduces casting costs and boosts his proficiency growth with every single practice session. Soon the food arrived, and it almost made him weep with joy. Real meat. His body was satisfied, the world dissolving into pure chewing, after a loud burp. He was nearly asleep on the bench when a soft voice woke him up. To settle the bill for 2 silver coins and 50 copper coins, he asked. Dazed how much it was, the waitress politely repeated 2 silver coins and 50 copper coins. Just days ago, Haley paid for 4 people at this same tavern for 3 silver and 40 copper, which had felt like a total scandal. Yet one meal for just him cost nearly the exact same. He was the extravagant one. Spending 0.03 of an apartment on one meal made his heart bleed. The calm waitress handed him the menu, and he looked. Fish and chips, thick charcoal-grilled steak, ham and cheese, hot borscht, and a few extra rounds he ordered because he was not full the first time. Adding up everything that hit the table, he knew the total was fair. The massive stack of empty plates agreed. Walking out, his chest still ached. When income goes up, lifestyle follows. That is just the law of the world. But he figured that sudden, insane craving for meat had simply bewitched him. Honestly, though, his body felt amazing. Maybe the rich food paid off a debt his harsh life owed him. He called it an investment. It does not hurt. It does not hurt. His current cash, 28 silver and 52 copper. Greed is a slippery slope. That sum looks huge until you start spending. Going from luxury back to cheap living is hard, and his desire to earn spiked. The next morning, he came downstairs to find Sophia mopping the lobby. She greeted him warmly as little Gauss, leaning on her mop to offer breakfast. The image of dry black bread and pickled soup popped up right beside last night's steak. The painful gap was too real. There was absolutely no going back now. He offered her a stiff, awkward smile and said he had no appetite today. Sophia watched him walk out, her gaze looking completely crushed. He left her there, doubting her own cooking skills, which was incredibly unfair since her food was completely fine. None of the other tenants would have ever complained about it. Now she will fret for a week as the morning bell rings over Grey Rock. Street stalls line the busy road, and he spends 4 copper coins on 2 meat pies. He silently apologizes to Sophia, reminding himself that he is strictly a carnivore now. Plain black bread and watery vegetable soup will not fuel the new constitution point he built. These pies are way better than they should be, but he keeps that quiet. But comparing them to dry black bread easily makes them taste twice as good to him. His plan for the morning is magic missile training, putting Mage Hand aside completely. He absolutely needs to cut its use. His biggest fear right now is a terrible mistake, triggering his professional path guidance with a useless spell. Having a weak 0 circle cantrip lock into his foundation would cause him lifelong, permanent regret. His Mage Hand is already at level 15 out of 20 at level 2. He does not know if level 3, level 4, or some later tier triggers the path. Right after breakfast, he heads out the gate. There is no room in town. He cannot simply throw bright blue magic around here, but the outside plains are incredibly vast. Other adventurers train there without crowding, so he keeps walking to be alone. He stops in an empty patch of wild grass, completely isolated from everyone else, and begins. Closing his eyes, he tries to search for that old feeling once again. His last successful magic missile cast had required absolute, extreme focus in a very deadly situation. Resting and washing in town has dulled his connection. He calls the spell. A flicker of blue light appears in his palm, then instantly dies. He expected this failure. First circle spells are never friendly on his very first training attempt. But practicing Mage Hand taught him that constant, endless repetition will get him there eventually. He tries again and again, resting, then pushing himself even further. Unlike Mage Hand, failing this spell still costs his mental energy. Mage Hand misses for free. Magic Missile leaves a small, real fatigue in the back of his head. Luckily, his intelligence stat is 7, which means his mental recovery is faster than normal. Lying in the grass and warming his face in the sun helps him recover. Soon he feels ready again. That elusive, familiar connection finally returns with a gentle breeze. A clean line of pure inspiration moves right through his mind with it. His body's mana mobilizes cleanly, gathering directly in his palms. As it flows, the ambient magic in the surrounding air weaves together directly into the final shape. A magic missile takes form in his hand. Trust me, it looks absolutely incredible. With no terrifying hobgoblin in front of him this time, he can actually closely admire it. It is a clear sphere of energy, with braided mana currents flowing inside. It is designed to be harmless to him, but a slight mental pressure suggests real control. With a bit of focused effort, the sphere shifts slightly in his open palm. The control is real, even if his current magic proficiency is still way too low. He closes his fingers around the missile and lobs it into the empty distance. The very instant it leaves his hand, it accelerates instantly forward. It flies in a straight line, reaching its maximum velocity almost immediately after. It drags a long, bright blue halo across the entire field before hitting the ground. A massive explosion of blue energy blooms. Honestly, that impact is absolutely insane. As the smoke clears, a spiderweb of deep cracks is left behind. A fist-sized crater sits directly at the center of the impact. His magic missile is a success. That is his first training milestone. The Adventurer's Handbook chimes, adding a neat first circle proficiency tick. His magic missile rose to level 1, reaching 4 progress. Exhausted, it still beat. His first cast against the hobgoblin, he did not completely lock up. His head was still heavy and stuffed with cotton, so he lay down to wait. A successful cast that consumed that much mana, left behind 5 units of fatigue, compared to a single failure's 1. He spent 30 minutes resting before his mind cleared. His 7 points of intelligence kept paying dividends. Normal recovery from a state like that usually meant a full night of sleep. For him, it was a long blink. His mana was slowly creeping upward day by day, too. Not fast, but steady progress, the kind of growth that let him sleep easy. Still, his pool was not yet big enough. For first circle spells at this stage, 1 week into his awakening, the supply had not caught up to what magic missile cost. He asked himself the obvious next. Question, could he somehow trim the mana cost of a single cast, the full power? Missile felt like complete overkill even at the base level. A lot of mana was spilling onto the ground after the target was hit. Against a normal goblin, he bet 10% of full power would kill it. Against that hobgoblin, 30 to 50% would have done the job. The rest was wasted if he could not cut it. Even 80 or 90% of full output would still be a win. It would shorten the recovery window between attempts and let him restart training sooner. As it stood, each successful cast bought him a 30-minute lie down on the grass, which was simply no way to grind proficiency. He sat back up and prepared to try again. Closing his eyes, he found the mana channel was much cleaner this time. The path